Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Here we go, barflies. Welcome to the Barfly Tailgate Show. You already know it's done by barflies for barflies and all the other Bears fans out there. Well, gentlemen, we've made it to draft week finally after a long off season. Powering our way through, we finally made it. So I'm here with C-Dub and Jordan. If you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves for anyone who hasn't been here and maybe tuning in for the first time, we'll start with my man C-Dub across the pond. How you doing this lovely morning, brother?
I'm doing great, mate. Good morning. Good morning, America. Good morning to everybody in the chat and you guys. It's great to come back, man. I just needed a little bit of a break last week, and but yeah, I mean, I'm actually sort of excited now about the draft. I'm not a mock drafter like you guys. I know AC, you've probably been doing mock drafts since sort of August last year. So it looked like, yeah, I bet you did. I bet you what's happened, AC. One time, I bet your wife's gone, AC, I'm feeling a bit amorous tonight, and you've gone, sorry, I'm doing my mock draft today. But yeah, so I've actually got into a draft then, so yeah, it's great to be back, and I look forward to the show and the information I'm going to learn. So yeah, it's great to be back, fellas.
Yeah, we missed you last week, brother. It's good to have you back this week. And to my left is my man Jordan Silvera, bright and early out there in the West Coast. How you doing this morning, brother?
Always good. AC, C-Dub, appreciate you being here. Yeah, 7:09 a.m. West Coast, Best Coast. You got me up early, but excited to talk about the draft. We are finally here. It's Christmas time for us NFL fans. It's Draftsmith week, so excited to get into it and talk prospects, talk about opportunities for the Chicago Bears. And this is hope season. I mean, simply put, that's why everybody loves the draft. That's why everybody's excited. It doesn't really matter what fan or what team you're a fan of. Just that right now, all the hope is in the world. Who is going to come to your team and change the luck of your franchise? So,
yeah,
really fun.
Yeah, it's hope season. It's also lying season. So I'm seeing a lot of rumors, and we talked before we got on the air about the testing numbers that came out this week. C.J. Stroud did not do well. Maybe he falls to our lap, and we can trade back again, which would be a beautiful scenario, I think. I mean, the Heart Foundation, and go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, it's not clear. How much does say? I know we were talking about it before, but how much do you think that would actually cause? How far it could cause to go down the draft just due to one thing? If it, instead of like all the rest of like the testing he's been doing all week, he's been really good. But do you reckon that surely do you reckon that make him drop a couple of spots or?
It really depends on the GM and the owner and the way how much they value those tests. Also, the history of Ohio State quarterbacks may buy into that a little bit, depending on the owner and the GM. As far as their biasness, I mean, we watched Justin Fields fall to striking distance with us when in my opinion, he was the second best quarterback in that draft. So he should have went to the New York Jets, but they chose to go with Zach Wilson because he had an incredible pro day. So it really just all depends on how much they value that. And I don't know if it's really taken off. Like we always hear about the Wonderlic test every year. There's different drills that happen at the combine that hold more weight than others. Like, I don't know, depending on your position, a 40 doesn't really matter. You know, a defensive tackle or an offensive tackle's 40 doesn't always matter. But it just really depends on how it all plays out. Kind of hopeful for it because I would like to see us get back up into the second round. And I think the perfect scenario for that would be to drop back in the first and grab someone else's second rounder. But I don't know. We'll have to see how it all plays out, honestly. I did want to touch on the Hart Foundation's comment here that says the Titans might be trading Derrick Henry to the Dirty Birds. I did see this the other night. Maybe it was last night I saw that. Man, if Philly gets him, that would be dangerous. I mean, I was looking at Philly as a Bijan Robinson spot, and if they trade for him, I don't. Go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, you see, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at too. Is when you think, I mean, I see Hart Foundation's question here about like how would Derrick Henry going to the Eagles affect what we do? I don't necessarily know, Hart, if it affects what the Bears are doing, but again, we're just talking about where two teams are in their process. And right now, the Bears are in a very different spot than the Eagles. The Eagles are looking to put the icing on the cake. They are in a luxury position where what do you really need if you're the Eagles? You just let Miles Sanders walk to Carolina, so you do need a running back. Offensive line is built. Receiving core is built. Just paid your quarterback, made him the richest man in the NFL. Defense is pretty solid. Fletcher Cox is back. Brandon Graham's back. So outside of safety and running back, you really don't have many needs. And this would allow them to snag the best safety on the board with that second first-round pick that they have, or even their first if they wanted to take. I really don't think they'd take a guy that high. But what this does do is this allows them to double dip. I agree with Casey. I thought that Bijan was probably in the picture for them if he found a way to slide to that second pick. I've always had a little bit of hesitation with it. I don't necessarily think that the track record shows Howie Roseman tends to follow positional value. He's never drafted a running back all that high. One of the higher ones was Miles Sanders. So I don't even know if Bijan was totally in the cards, but if you're telling me you can get Derrick Henry, who, you know, frankly, still probably has some left in the tank. The Titans are sitting there trying to clearly reset. I think it would. I have to be honest, as an NFL fan, it would be kind of hard for me to watch just because I think that Derrick Henry is a legend of this era of football, and he's synonymous with the Tennessee Titans. And I mean, just in general, it bums me out to see the Tennessee Titans just kind of ripping away the pieces where you're shipping off AJ Brown, and now if you let go of Derrick Henry and Taylor Lewan is going. But I also understand that's kind of par for the course. When you bring in a new GM, Khalil Mack gets shipped off and Hakeem Hicks goes. And so it wouldn't be the biggest shock, but it makes sense. It allows the Eagles. So to just quickly wrap up on Hart's question, if they were to get Derrick Henry for, I don't know, let's just say anything that we're just talking the first round here, they keep their first round picks. That allows you at 10 to pick a backup or a heir apparent for Lane Johnson. You can still grab one of the better tackles because you're probably not going to be picking in the top 10 in any future years with how good your team is. So take that chance, draft one of the best tackles on the board at 10, and then you can come back with your second first-round pick and hit that safety now that you have Derrick Henry, as opposed to trying to spend it on Jahmyr Gibbs or, Bijan Robinson. So that's how I think it affects the Eagles.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see for the Eagles there if they were able to keep both their first-round picks and get Derrick Henry. Brian Branch was a name that early in draft season he was slotted at like the New York Jets at 13. So, and lately he's kind of been dropping, and people have been in mock drafts. They've been grabbing him in the second round. Maybe he's a guy that they'll have their eye on at 31, and I don't know. But, right tackle at 10, or even they could package those two picks and try to move up and get Jordan Davis, or not Jordan Davis,
Jalen
Jalen Carter, because they got a lot of Georgia Bulldogs on that defense. I feel like if you're going to bring him in and get him acclimated to the NFL, if he's around people he knows or he played with before, that would be helpful with his ability to get in NFL shape and know what's asked of him. But we got a late bloomer here, late riser. Looks like he's going into the matrix, but I'll go ahead and bring him into our matrix. My man KB. Good morning, brother. What's up?
What's going on, fellas? Hey, man, my boy Aldo said he missed the, the matrix glasses. So we got to get people what the motherfucker want, man. Get the motherfucking Morpheus glasses out and bust them out this morning. Trying to do the damn thing this morning. You feel me, man? We was up a little bit too late watching the fight. You feel me? Celebrating a little bit too much, drinking a little too much. You know how it is, man. Yeah. So your boy had to get around this morning. How we doing, fellas? What's going on with you?
We're doing pretty good, man.
My boy C-Dub in the building. What's Chris? What's going on, man?
I can't be apart for too long. If I'm apart for too long, I start feeling like life is weird if I don't see a bit of the boys.
Hey,
So,
man,
but yes, you're looking good, KB, mate. Look like being on a bit of a mission last night.
Hey, man. And they got my boy Jordan on here, man. I know it's early as hell for you, man. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, man. So what I hear we talking about? It sounds like the Derrick Henry nonsense that's going on, man. I ain't believing shit until I see it. You feel me? I'm not. I don't know why the Titans would even try to do this, man. You giving this superhero to the Justice League, goddamn it. They don't need him. Come on, bro. They don't need Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I don't know how much sense it makes, and I mean, again, to KB's point, we gotta see who the source is, because that was reported a couple of days ago. There's been no movement, and even when it was reported, I don't think it was reported from anybody truly reputable. But it's one of those things where, again, even on the Titans side, I understand the journey of Rand Carthon saying, let me sell off whatever I can because this is my new team and I want to build it the way I want to build it. But if you're Mike Vrabel, and we all know Mike Vrabel on the outside is a fiery competitor, I just can't seem to fathom a world where they're already going to have a hard season. They need a lot of pieces. Mm-hmm. How are you going to ride through an ugly season without Derrick Henry? Because at least if you have Derrick Henry and you don't have a quarterback, you can just hand it to Derrick Henry, let him rack up another 1,500 yards. That gets you through a year. I cannot imagine Mike Vrabel trying to go through an ugly season full of losses, and they're handing it off to Hassan Haskins and some other guy in the backfield with no real quarterback, no real line. I get you're doing the Caleb Williams tank, but I just don't know how much I can see Mike Vrabel buying into that.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel wasn't too happy when they traded away A.J. Brown either.
No.
So that's if they start selling off his pieces, he's gonna let it be known he's not happy about it. He's a hell of a coach, though, I think.
Absolutely.
So I guess we should get on track here and talk a little Bears. The Bears, as everyone knows, has the 9th overall pick. In 4 short days, we're going to find out how everything above them plays out and who they end up with on night 1 of the NFL draft. As I said when we came in, I'm kind of hoping a quarterback falls to our area so that we can trade back, or maybe someone will come up for one of these offensive tackles or Jalen Carter situation. We'd have to see how that all plays out. It's just a lot of things that can happen, and that's why the draft is so exciting, because everyone has their own board and their own way of going about it, and it's just like Jordan said, it's like Christmas morning. You don't know what's under the tree, and maybe you open it up and it's an Xbox, maybe you open it up and it's a pair of socks. So Yeah, you got to figure it out from there.
Well, if you're a Bears fan, it's been socks for many years, but hopefully
socks with holes in the heels, man.
Bro, not even socks, but we getting draws with the holes all through them, bro. That's all we getting, boy. You can't even say good socks, shit.
That's like I'm gonna say that's like the worst trick you could do to a kid, isn't it? Like buy an Xbox box and just put some socks in it and give the kid the present.
Well, that's what C-Dub, that's what the Bears have been doing since they got. God, how long do we want to go? Shea McClellan, Gabe Karimi, Chris Williams. Like Kevin White. The list goes on, and so. But the good news is all of that seemed to have changed when one day they opened up a Ferrari named Fields under the tree. So hopefully, and now it seems like we got a little bit of a DJ Moore type present going on, and we're going to see what happens with numerous picks in the top 50. Well, I guess not in the top 50, in the top 65, but I guess maybe I'm dropping a little hint of what I want to see. Maybe they'll find a way to get up into the top 50 as well.
Yeah. It was really nice to open up Justin Fields and get him under the tree, and DJ Moore brought him in this year, which is really nice. I do worry though, we still have a big hole at right tackle. Darnell Wright is gaining a lot of steam with Bears fans. I think we should open up, talk about offensive linemen. I know, Jordan, you're a big fan of Skoronski. The more I've seen of him, I'm seeing him as a guard, and I really don't think that's a need for us. I like Paris Johnson Jr. an awful lot, but they do say he's a left tackle, and I do like Braxton Jones as well. So I don't know. If Darnell Wright's the guy, I feel like it's a trade back option. I don't want to pick him at 9. I know some Bears fans are head over heels in love with him and think that he should be the top 10 pick. I don't buy that. Are you guys on board with that? Or let's talk Darnell Wright first. I feel like he's a guy I could see us dropping back to the Steelers pick at 17. If we could pick up 32 again, that'd be great. And that's who I'd be perfectly fine with him there. But at 9, I just feel like that's a little too rich. What do you guys think?
So my thing is this, you feel me? The Pittsburgh Steelers trade to me would be probably the most ideal trade back that you can get, right? You get 17, you talk them into giving you 32 back. Don't ask the shit else. Just get the 32nd pick. If there's a way you can swing that and Darnell Wright is there, then good. You got your right tackle. Boom, bang. First round settle. I'm all in. I'm all on the bandwagon for Darnell Wright. I get it. You need a right tackle. You have to hope that with the move of Nate Davis and hopefully keeping Tevin Jenkins healthy for a whole year, and you would have to imagine you're going to get a little bit better at center with whoever the hell wins that job between Patrick and Whitehair. I have said this before. The interior of the O-line needs to be stronger because that's where the pocket forms. Your quarterback needs to step into the pocket to deliver passes. What we couldn't do last year was step into the pocket because Whitehair was either getting his ass beat, whoever the hell name wasn't Tevin Jenkins was getting his ass beat, and then you have the mess that we call Mustafa at center. So that makes your tackles look bad because your quarterback is dropping back, and then you have edge rushers coming, just pushing fucking tackles into your damn quarterback when realistically he should be able to move forward, and then he can cut out the pocket if he needs to. So I'm praying. Yeah, this is praying that the moves that were made mean better inside line play. That being said, I am all on board with getting Darnell right. That's a very good consolation prize. However you want to put it, I don't fucking care. He's going to be a stalwart at right tackle. You're going to have your 2 bookend tackles.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because to me, Darnell Wright, I agree with you, AC. I agree with you, KB, and I'm sure that C-Dub's going to have kind of come in the same, like you don't want to overdraft. But to me, we talked about, getting the draws with the holes in them or socks with the holes in them. And frankly, I'm just kind of come to this point where as long as you get the right guy, I don't really care if it's at 9, if it's at 17, if it's at 25. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll give you a perfect example. Alex Leatherwood with the Raiders was typically seen as a second to third round guard, and the Raiders picked him at like 16 or 17 or whatever. And that was rich, and it didn't pay off. But if he was their starting right tackle or right guard right now, and that offensive line was a little bit more shored up, you wouldn't really hear much about it. People would be okay with him being selected at 16. Just as if Cleveland Farrell was a solid contributing starting defensive end for the Raiders, wouldn't have been a problem. So I get it, and this is part of the danger of it. The reason that it's likely Farrell and Leatherwood didn't work out is because they were overdrafted and they weren't quite the players that they thought they were getting that high. But if we're, quibbling about Darnell Wright at number 9 or, can we please try to trade back to 17 and get him? I'm all for it. But I understand, too, that it takes 2 to tango. And frankly, I don't think you're going to see a trade until you know how those first 6, 7, maybe 8 picks go. And it's not that a tackle's not worth moving up for. But I also, and again, this is just a personal perspective from my evaluation, I don't personally think I've seen a tackle in this year's class that's just the next Trent Williams, the next Lane Johnson, there's just not that guy. And so to me, sure, and I'll tell you this, there's the potential of that guy. Everybody loves Paris Johnson. I think Paris Johnson has all the tools in the world, but I think he's still much of a work in progress. Broderick Jones, I think, from Georgia, is a guy that probably fits Ryan Poles and what the Bears are looking for a little more. But he's raw. He's only got about a year of starting experience at Georgia, but he's a bully. He's got tools. But, Darnell Wright's tape in 21 was not nearly as solid, and that was at left tackle.
Yeah.
And he comes to right tackle, and he looks like a star. And, yes, everybody wants to put on the Will Anderson tape where he was, whooping up Will Anderson, and he held his own against B.J. Ojulari. And so I understand that there's good tape there. But, again, some of that is consistency. And now, we're talking about projecting a little bit. He was a heavier player on all that tape that you're watching where he looked fantastic. He was a heavier player. And all of the things that you're now trying to parse together is he's losing weight and his athletic testing was better than it seemed because he's dropped some weight. I presume with that weight drop, he'd be just as good at right tackle. But again, we don't know that until he puts on the pads and he's going up against NFL defensive linemen. And is he better at that lower weight, or does he actually function best at a weight that's higher that maybe doesn't quite fit the zone scheme? So to me, you've got a lot of questions here with the offensive tackles that, again, if we can trade back, I'm with it. But who's to say that I can guarantee somebody's going to move up for that? And really, the only two positions that would make sense is I can see a team moving up for a corner or for a lineman because, frankly, I don't think that the quarterbacks, all three, are going to be there at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, Cornelius says draft Darnell Wright and don't worry about the right tackle spot for 10 years. I just – honestly, and we talked about the Christmas gifts that were socks with holes in them. Gabe Carimi was a big name that you brought up there, Jordan. Going into that draft, I loved Gabe Carimi.
Chris Williams.
Yep.
Chris Williams, I don't know. That was he played for Vandy, so I'm biased. But with Gabe Carimi, I was like, well, he's a Wisconsin tackle. Those guys don't miss. They know how to build him up there. He's a home run hit, and then we swung and missed. So that worries me with taking a tackle in the top 10, especially like you said, Jordan. You're not the only one I've heard say this. There's no can't miss tackle prospect in this draft. There's questions about all of them. With Paris Johnson, there's questions about how he can handle the bull rush, which we saw last year with Braxton Jones. So,
I mean, shit, maybe Ryan Poles, you kind of have liked those type of tackles. I kid, but like. If you want another Braxton, you want a guy that gives up anchor really quick. That's Paris Johnson. I'm with it. Like we can do that. And I mean, I got to let C-Dub talk here because I know he's been patiently waiting. But I put out a mock yesterday, my full first round mock, and I had this is not what I want for the Bears, but I had the Bears taking Paris Johnson because whether I'm being facetious or not, they have a type. They like that light in the pants offensive tackle that can get out on the move and. Maybe they get their shit kicked in a little bit in the anchor, but they also don't mind that if the tackle can recover. And I will give, for everything I may have negative to say about Paris Johnson today, the one thing he has in spades is he gives up that anchor real quick, but seldom does he get beat. He finds a way to recover and get it back under him, and that's valuable too. It's one thing. I'd prefer you never get beat, but this is the NFL where not every play works out beautifully. You are going to get beat, and it's about how do you respond to that adversity. And I'll give all the credit in the world to Paris Johnson. Every time, for the most part, you see him get beat, he finds a way to recover, unless it's Lucas Van Ness just putting him on skates to the quarterback. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, I don't know when you put it out, but I did see one of your mock drafts where you had us taking. I guess we should talk O-line, and then we'll get into some D-line talk. But, Chris, I know you don't watch a ton of college football, but I know you listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm sure you've tuned into Draft on Tap and stuff. Is there an offensive lineman that you're enamored with that we haven't spoke about a lot that you think take a chance on this guy?
I actually written down 3 because actually I thought I better do some homework. And you've already spoken about the 3. I mean, Skoronski, he sort of intrigues me, but I know, after listening to Greg Gabriel, about the guy's arms, and he's worried about the arm length, but I think he'd be quite a versatile player. But what I've also wanted to ask you boys is what do you reckon we should do with the centre position? Because we're talking about the centre position's been dreadful for quite a few years now. So would you guys try and draft a centre, or would you try and get one like a free agent or whatever?
Well, if I can take this real quick, because I mean, that to me, I have to. Chris is hitting home and hitting my heartstrings here because I just talked about how Broderick wasn't quite that guy and Paris isn't quite that guy. And AC, for what it's worth, I'm with you. I think that I'd prefer Skoronski at guard, at inside, because I think that it's easier to project what it looks like inside for Elijah Vera Tucker, Zach Martin, Joel Bitonio, David DeCastro. I mean, you can see those type of builds and see how quality you can get with Skoronski, and I'm with it. But I also think, and this is my only qualm with it, is I think he's earned the right to play tackle and then let him fail inside. And to me, if there was one offensive lineman that you want to take at 9, I'll sleep easy. And I've said this for months. Like, if it's Skoronski, that's the pick. And this is the reason for that is, I mean, just try to put yourself in the shoes of Ryan Poles. Drafting is hard. It's a crapshoot. And if you can take a player, you're never going to take a player and be able to just totally be risk-free. But if you can take a player, and you almost can sleep easy that night because he's one of the blue chippers in the class. He truly has 5-position versatility. He played left tackle in college. And let me dig on him a little bit, because for those that have concerns about arm length, and I know that you'll hear Duke Manyweather, who, he's a client of Duke Manyweather's. And so I understand you'll see very respected individuals say he showed himself to play against Big Ten competition at tackle and he can do it. And I'm with it. Give him that chance. But there's also clear instances on tape where people get into his chest because the arms don't match up. And that's enough for me to say, absolutely, get him inside to guard. But I still think the Bears makes perfect sense. He can play right tackle. And I don't mean to be a pessimist, but I'll believe it. And I guarantee you'd be hard pressed to find a bigger Tevin fan than me. But Tevin's not proved to me to be healthy 1 year yet. So I'm putting Skoronski at right tackle. And then when Tevin inevitably gets hurt, then that's your opportunity to slide right back into left guard. And then we can go find out who that right tackle is. Maybe you've groomed up a rookie. Maybe you've got a street free agent. Maybe Alex Leatherwood's back in the picture, ready to play some right tackle. Because Tevin is now hurt, and it just makes more sense. Let's get Skoronski into his natural position. And just Chris's point, and this is the last one I'll bring, is people don't really know this, but Skoronski came out of high school as a center, came to Northwestern as a center, and had to jump to left tackle because Rashawn Slater decided to sit out for the COVID year.
Right.
And then just started as a freshman at left tackle and never surrendered it because that's how quality and good of a player he is. So you're talking, Chris, about, like, what are we going to do at center? If Cody Whitehair and Lucas Patrick fall back, well, guess what? This is why Skoronski makes sense at 9. I cannot go wrong. Tevin gets hurt. Yeah, he'll play left guard. He's already got left foot versatility. Oh, well, can he snap? Yeah. He snaps as a center in high school. And you've got Coach Fitz from Northwestern said multiple times, he can play all 5. we had no problem with that. I mean, he practices it all fine. Like, this is a situation where if I take this guy at 9, I sleep easy because there's no wrong answer. Quality player, blue chip talent. Sure, maybe the arms aren't quite there, but he's a star at guard. What is he at center? Like, this is to me the one that makes sense. Other than that, if it's offensive line, unless you're trading back, I think anything else is too rich, and I'm going defensive line, which we'll get to, but that was the little Van Ness tease.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I didn't know that he played center in high school. My son's learning how to snap this year, and that's basically what I told him. I said, if you can snap and get it back there and then the ball's not hitting the ground, you got a job for a lot of years, you know. But that's definitely interesting that he has. You hear about position versatility. A lot of times people are talking guard to tackle or guard to center. But the fact that he can play all 5, that definitely makes it a little more enticing for me. I was kind of out on Skoronski, as a lot of Bears fans were, I believe. But the way you just broke it down, man, it sounds really great. You know, can play all 5 positions. No off the field issues, you know, shows up, gets the job done, played left tackle at a Big Ten level. I mean, it sounds like he's checking an awful lot of boxes, and I'm not sure what his numbers were, but he has the athleticism to play in this type of offense, Jordan.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a great feat. And I mean, this is the thing too that nobody talks about. I just gave you the real negative on the tape. The negative is that those arms do show up and people get into his chest. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. He's had to live with it his entire life. This is not new. It's not like people are just getting into his chest. All of a sudden, this is his first year playing the long arm defenders. I mean, this has been happening for years, and you learn to adapt or die. And in this case, he's learned to adapt and play against these defenders that have these long arms. And sure, every once in a while, there's a bad set. Lucas Van Ness has a famous clip of last year putting him on his ass. And that was an example of, like, that can't happen. That's why we need to move you maybe inside. But all the other reps are like teach tape. I mean, I'll go in a little separate way. Like, there was a question that came up, like, who, out of all the offensive linemen, who was the most fun to watch? And a lot of people said Skoronski, and I actually said Darnell Jones, because Darnell Jones is like that the whole meme of, like, want to see a dead body. That's his tape on every rep, and I love that. But Skoronski is just teach tape. Like, if I'm like, hey, how to play offensive lineman 101, I'm putting up the Skoronski tape, because he's had to adapt those short arms. So you'll see him, he's cupping at the flexion point on the elbow to make sure that, guess what, you can't extend when I have you on the elbow here, and I'm just using a Hamilton technique to force your arm up. Like, it's all there. I mean, he was playing against one of the freakiest edges in the class, in Zach Harrison, who looks like a lab creation. He's 6'5", 270. I think it's like 34, 35-inch arms. And he's just owning Zach Harrison left and right. Now, Zach Harrison isn't the most refined, but this is happening week in and week out for the most part. So to me, and nobody talks about this either, the Bears, and you've heard Getsy talk about it, guard is the most important position on this offensive line. And so you mean to tell me you're going to get a Zach Martin or somebody at guard to play with your newly signed Nate Davis? And I love Tevin Jenkins, I do, but we
about to explode down here.
Yeah, and I'm going to get you, but it's just like,
he knows why, because I just said it.
You're talking about it like, I love Tevin, I do. It just doesn't feel right, guys, and I hate to say it, because, like, I've never liked that. I was upset last year when they were talking about trading him. It just never quite seems like they're on the same page, and those guards are important. And you just saw him pull a 5th-round starter last year at tackle. So, again, let him play right tackle. He's earned the right, but it just makes sense to me. And if he's solid at tackle, great. Leave him there. But what's the worst? Oh, man, Skoronski's not quite great at tackle. Let's put him to guard. Oh, where he's going to be an ass kicker? Great. I'd gladly take. At tackle, he's Brian Bulaga. And I know it's not a popular name because he's a Packer, but he's Brian Bulaga, solid starter. At guard, I like AVT, Elijah Vera Tucker, who, by the way, was supposed to be only a guard and had to play some spot duty at tackle last year and was just fine. And then Zach Martin, who's had to do it, Joe Thuney.
That's the name I've heard a lot, is Thuney. Yeah,
so, I mean, let me get the KB and Cito on it, but that, to me, Skoronski, I'll wax poetically about him for an hour.
Look, like I said, bro, it's what I came on and I said. The inside of your own line, to me, is the most important fucking spot because you need to form a pocket. I can deal with a tackle riding a fucking edge all the way around the world as long as your quarterback can step up. I'm sorry, your tackles look like rock stars if your goddamn your two guards and your center won't move. They look like rock stars because your quarterback can maneuver the pocket. That's all I said, bro. And I remember Jordan saying this shit a while back. We had this conversation. If you draft Skoronski, I would legit just throw Skoronski at left guard, bro. Kick fucking Tevin Jenkins out the right tackle. Let's stop playing this game like the man doesn't have the talent to play it. Give him the shot. If he fails, then he fucking fails. You draft the right tackle down the line. You can get Bergeron in the 3rd or 4th round. Draft somebody right now. Draft the Skoronski. You put Skoronski at left guard. You kick Tevin Jenkins out the right tackle. Presumably, he won't get that fucking hurt playing tackle because he's not inside. He's not banging with these dudes. You don't have to worry about your running back running into the back of his leg or him being stepped on because he's on the outside. Moving him to the right tackle might keep the man from being fucking hurt.
You mean it's worth giving him more than a half in a preseason game?
You know, maybe three quarters. You feel me? Maybe 3. But
but first we got to talk about he's got to have good Wednesdays, guys. Wednesdays have got to be better.
It's crazy to me because, like you said, we probably have a right tackle on the team, and his name is Tevin Jenkins. We've said this shit since the dude was drafted. He's probably a really good tackle if you give him the chance. And for whatever reason, nobody's giving the dude a fucking chance to play tackle.
But did he play right tackle at college as well? That was what he was playing in his last year, wasn't it?
Tevin Jenkins was playing what, left tackle his last year?
And this is the whole DeJuan Jones. Like DeJuan Jones was murdering people. Tevin was murdering people at right tackle in college.
That's it.
Yeah.
He's still young enough to sit there and make this move now. If you draft Peter Skoronski at 9, like I said, you'll have Bears fans crying, blah, 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 whatever the fuck ever, dog. You put Skoronski at left guard. You got whoever the fuck you got playing center. Nate Davis right guard. Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis on the same side, I wouldn't want no parts of, period. Because you got one angry person pushing you into another angry person, and that angry person possibly pushing you back into another angry person. That's just a really bad day for somebody.
I mean, can you imagine duo with Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis? Like, it'd
be the equivalent of Javonte Davis walking out with Chief Keef. You already know what the problem is. He just told you he's walking out to Chief Keef.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I'll push back a little because I totally understand that we found success with Tevin. It's already at guard, so I can even see like why move him. And that's what I'm saying. I get to butter both sides of the bread. Like Skoronski, you've earned the right to play some tackle. You showed it in the Big Ten. Let's put you over to the right side. Nobody has to have a conversation about if it doesn't go well, I'll move you inside. It's just kind of an understanding. And we're not moving Tevin again. Tevin, if you stay healthy, wonderful. That's a good problem to have. But if you don't, then I've already got the immediate backup plan. And if you do, then great. He stays at right tackle, or we all of a sudden start talking about maybe this is our answer at center is Skoronski, or, Tevin stays healthy, but we just don't quite see eye to eye on him, Poles and Tevin. So look, he's in the last year of his rookie deal. Maybe he's had another good year at guard. We can ship him out for something. Again, I want nothing of this. I was happier about the Tevin pick than the Fields one at the time, as crazy as that sounds. But to me, again, as much as I'd love to just shoo it away like it's not a problem, it seemed very tenuous between the relationship between Poles and Jenkins. And maybe that's better now, but I still don't necessarily let me put it this way. I don't know how Ryan Poles feels about Tevin Jenkins linking some guy to say he's playing left guard on Twitter. And I even thought, in some ways, maybe that was Tevin trolling because the guy that had said it didn't have any legitimate source. It wasn't Rappaport. It wasn't, a coach. It wasn't Johns or Hogue with the inside scoop. So maybe it was Tevin just trolling around. But regardless, and I love Tevin's meme game and everything that he's doing, but I don't know how Ryan Poles feels about that. That could continue to kind of stress this relationship. And I'll like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. And I take no pride or joy in it, but I think that we've seen a lot of things leading to the idea that Tevin may not be long for the Chicago Bears. And so it makes, again, part of that too is how can I parse it together? You're telling me I can get one of the safest players in the draft and I can sleep easy on night one because I know I didn't mess up the most important one. Like, how valuable is that? To me, that's pretty valuable.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice to say. I got the guy that everybody loved. There was always like, you could find a spot for him. It was good tape. I'll take the one, this last little bit. One of my favorite parts about Skoronski is I just very seldom as a Bears fan do you get to stick it back to the Packers. And in this kid's situation, like, you know who they have on the Packers squad? They have fucking Butkus as their offensive line coach. They got Butkus's nephew or whatever. Like, it's a little play. It's not a big deal, but there's a little bit of like, that's our name. That's our guy you got over there. And you know what? I take some pride in going, Grandpa Skoronski was like one of the best left tackles for the Green Bay Packers.
Ring of Honor.
We're gonna go ahead and take Skoronski and bring him over to the dark side with the Bears. Like that, I take some pride in that. That's what I would like to see. So again, I see people in the chat talking about like Van Ness, and again, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But to me, if we're talking just offensive line, Skoronski's the guy at 9 if he's there. And frankly, I think he'd be there, but it wouldn't surprise me if you see somebody, the Raiders or somebody else, just go, look, we don't pass on good talent. And I mean, that was the thing too, AC, is that, we're talking about, well, maybe it's Paris or it's Darnell. And, I don't want to draft a guard at number 9. At what point are we now drafting for need? Like best player available or need? And ideally, you want those to match up. But, you're okay. That dog's barking, no big deal. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So KB, C-Dub, I'm sorry. I know I go on rants, but to me, I love Skoronski.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if the dog liked you're talking about the Packers, but yeah. So we talked a little Paris, who I'm in love with. I love Paris. He's my favorite offensive tackle in this class. I would love to have him. We talked a little Darnell Wright. We talked a whole lot of Skoronski. Thank you for that breakdown, Jordan. We have not touched on Broderick Jones yet, who seems like he played in the SEC, top-level talent, national champion. The only question about him is experience, in my opinion. I haven't watched the tape, but I feel like we'd be remiss if we moved on from offensive line without talking about all of the options there. The only Georgia I watched was, of course, the national championship and those. I caught them some, but usually I was at Kentucky games. So I did see him play here in Lexington. But when I went to Lexington, honestly, I was a big Jalen Carter fan, and I was like, I'm going to see what Jalen Carter does against our offensive line. Well, he did absolutely nothing, but I didn't watch a ton of Broderick Jones. I think they put up 2 touchdowns. It wasn't a crazy blowout like I thought it was going to be. But Jordan, I'll start with you. Broderick Jones, what does he bring to the table?
He's very young. You want to talk about like those, because, we talk about Trent Williams or Lane Johnson and a lot of those really star tackles. They all have one thing in common, which is that they're kind of, let me be very clear. Defensive ends, defensive linemen are the apex athletes in the league. But when you talk about the really rare offensive linemen, they're not all this way. But genuinely, the true stud tackles, they all have a baseline of they're kind of the apex athletes in their own right. And I would say if you're talking about one of those guys in this class at the top, I do think Broderick Jones is that guy as far as just pure, like, the body. I mean, God, you see him playing basketball, and I'm like, how are you moving like that at 300? Like, he's just a freak. And he's got a nasty demeanor, too. And that's the benefit. Like, if it's, hey, Skoronski, we don't draft guards at 9, and we need his own guy, and so Dewan's out of the question, but we have to take a tackle. To me, I'd be hoping and praying that it was Broderick Jones. And the reason for that is, as we said, he's young. He's athletic. He's got that apex athlete build where he can do, him on the move is beautiful. And Paris is too, for what it's worth. But it's not like Broderick can't be on the move. And I think he does a quality job kind of lining up the target and making contact for the most part. His big issue is that he needs general refinement. And it comes from a lack of experience. Mm-hmm. What does it look like as he gets more starts under the belt, starts getting proper coaching? But from a physical standpoint, he just mauls dudes. And it's a different way. Like, DeWand is mauling people because he's just physically an outlier in every respect of the word. But Broderick, when he latches on, he's taking you for a ride. He's trying to dig your face mask in the dirt, rub your nose in it. Like, he's that type of guy. And that's what I like about it. And his anchor is not bad. Like, this is the thing is, so whether it's Paris with the typewriter feet where he ends up kind of getting pushed back as those feet are chomping or what the case may be, there's so much tape of Broderick just as like a stone. Like, he just puts those hands on you and you're just not going anywhere. And now that I got you latched, you're not really getting loose and this rep is over. And then now that I'm latched, how can I drive you into the dirt and remind you that I own you? Like, this is not an easy day for you. This is going to be bad. And that to me is the excitement about Broderick Jones. But there's, again, as we're talking about, like, there's no stud tackle. I've got to build that up. I've got to refine him. And that's not, this is not some like, because there's no stud tackle, don't take any before 10, before 15. But you do have to understand what you're getting into. And at the end of the day, specific to the Bears, is Chris Morgan that guy? Is he going to be the guy capable of unlocking a Broderick Jones and making sure that he reaches his full potential? Yeah. And I'm not negative on that, but I wouldn't say I'm necessarily bullish either. As much as Tevin looked good last year and Braxton looked okay, I didn't necessarily think, though, that the offensive line ever looked spectacular.
Right.
And whether
if they did, we wouldn't be talking about them in the top 10 of the draft.
Yeah, and whether it's talent or not, who knows? But look, at the end of the day, let's parse it down the middle then. Sure, maybe the talent of the offensive line was bad, but I got to give some blame to the offensive line coach and Chris Morgan, and you got to find a way to get those guys to perform better, irrespective of the quality. I get it. Maybe they're down here, but can you get them to average? And that didn't happen much last year. So that's and that's a question whether it's Skoronski, Broderick, Paris, whoever you draft. You're going to have that conversation. But that is where I personally sit with my evaluation of Broderick.
Yeah. KB, you got anything on Broderick Jones?
Man, my boy Jay said it all, bro. I think the biggest things you look at is my man's young. 6'5", almost 35-inch arms. And the kid's an athletic freak.
What's his age? I know we have
like 21. The kid is young as shit. So I mean, like you said, you see the kid playing basketball and the motherfucker's moving. And you like, I can see you playing power forward for somebody coming off the bench. I can see it.
I mean, let's call it what it is, KB. It's weird. Like
it is.
DeWand was a star basketball player. DeWand Jones, Ohio State, and like he'll dunk and all that. DeWand's a great athlete for his size. But even he looks a little clunky because of just how big he is.
Yeah.
Like I would implore anybody, go watch, just like type in Broderick Jones basketball, and he's got like a couple videos of him just like hooping around, and he's got no shirt on, and you're like, where's the fat on this guy? Yeah, and he's just kind of moving like he's you know what it is? He almost looks like he's a linebacker. And you're talking about a tackle, and they're not supposed to look the same. Like Skokes is saying, he gets Tyron Smith. Tyron. It's not bad. Tyron Smith was a monster. Tyron Smith was a gorilla unit coming out, like just a beast. And that's like the gorilla. Just so we're clear, gorilla. No racist term there. I mean,
unit.
Well, I'll give you an example. Like Trent Williams goes by Silverback, and I've called him a gorilla before. And people get pissed at me, and I'm like, no, that's his name. He goes by Silverback. So that's the same general sense I get from Tyron. But yeah, Broderick to me, to get back to KB at AC here, but C-Dub, but to me, that's what we're talking about with Broderick Jones is the peak athlete, like the Trent Williams type athlete, the one that gets out on the move, the one that's just, amazing. The Lane Johnson, the former quarterback who transitioned to tackle at Oklahoma and can keep up with all different types of edges. It's that type of dude. And that I can't understate the value of that. It's important. There's Trent Williams and Lane Johnson and guys like that, Bakhtiari in even some sense, but like these guys don't just end up there because they work really hard. That's a part of it, but a lot of it is what is your foundational baseline of your skill set, your body, your athleticism, and Broderick has that in spades.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. Chris, do you have anything else on offensive line before we try to move this conversation forward?
Just sort of concluding what we've just been talking about, really. I mean, the guy sounds absolutely fantastic, but it's like what we've all sort of touched on. It's just like he's lacking experience, and one of the things that we've all been talking for, like, especially since Justin Fields came to his own, is protecting Justin Fields. And if we can just give him that protection this year, where we're a bit more guaranteed with maybe something a bit more experience, then I'd rather go that way. But it's hard because if this guy is such an athlete, like, like a once in a generational athlete, then it might just be worth taking a little bit of a gamble. But it's just, for me, it's just like, I just want to get like that middle shored up with like people who know what they're doing, and then hopefully it'll open up Justin Fields to be a bit more of a pocket passer rather than having to look over his shoulder all the time.
Yeah, that's it's definitely interesting, and a lot of what Jordan was saying, it kind of sounded like Tevin coming out of college to me, burying guys and taking pride in putting guys in the dirt, and all that. But he's younger, so that's helps you build for the future. If he has inexperience, maybe that's another way to look at a trade back option, as we spoke on when we first came in. If you can trade back and still get one of these offensive tackles, which all sound solid, none sound spectacular, but who knows? I mean, we've seen guys like Eric Fisher go first overall, and what was that guy's name for Jacksonville?
Luke Jokel.
Yeah, Jokel. Going into that draft, everyone was like, this guy's can't miss. He's going to be your future at left tackle. You plug and play him for 10 years, all that type of stuff, and they didn't work out. So sometimes you have to take draft analysis with a grain of salt.
I'll give you this, and this is not to say that all these guys are going to pan out, because frankly, nobody can guarantee that. And landing spot is so important, as we talk about with who's your coach, what's your situation, what's the patience level. I don't mean to like harp on Leatherwood, but Leatherwood got dealt the rawest hand of cards. I mean, Tom Cable, who's got his own history as an offensive line coach, but I mean, they destroyed that kid's confidence, put him at right tackle. He failed a little bit. Then, like, you're a guard. Oops, no, you're not a guard either. You can't even play for us. And, like, all of that matters in context to a player's career. And so I'm not here to tell you that all of these guys are going to pan out. But to your point, AC, of Jokel, Ogbuehi, Cedric Ogbuehi that went to the Bengals, who's the other guy we were talking about, if Eric Fisher, I mean, any of Jonah Williams, any of these guys that you want to talk about, to me, Broderick, Paris, Darnell Wright even, but let's just focus on kind of those two at the top, Broderick and Paris. To me, they are immensely better athletes than any of those guys, and that to me is inspiring. And I only say this because, like I said, if it's me personally, I wouldn't pick any of these guys at 9. I would probably go Skoronski, but on a personal level, like what I think is going to happen, it's going to be one of these guys to the Bears. And so you're always going to find somebody that's outraged. But to me, if I can give any consolation to anybody that sees those picks, is, to me, Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson are leagues ahead of even guys that have made super solid careers, like Jake Matthews, Falcons tackle, who's on his 3rd or 4th contract at this point. Really solid guy, set it, forget it. Not a world beater, but you're not going to have nightmares about him as your tackle. To me, Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson, they're coming in at a higher point and a higher starting point with even better tools in their bag to use. And I think that matters. That is, at the base level, that's what I'm trying to build towards. And I think that's what's enticing about these guys.
Shannon Schroeder here has an interesting question. How does Broderick compare to Darnell Wright athletically?
To me, much better. I tell you, when you watch Broderick Jones move, it's like, that's not normal. It's a little different. Like, his ability to track people on the second level, his ability to get out in space, his physicality that he brings when he gets to contact. Darnell Wright is a little more of a lumbering guy. And that's not to say he's not athletic. He's pretty athletic for his size, but he doesn't move like Broderick. And his anchor, and Darnell Wright is a former 5-star. He's a senior at Tennessee, so he's got plenty of experience. And so to me, but if we're talking about calling cards, so this is the Darnell Wright calling card. The Darnell Wright calling card is the anchor, the pass pro and the anchor. So if you're trying to run through Darnell Wright, it's just never going to happen. You're just not going to do it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the DeJuan Jones thing. Like, you can't take a guy that's 370, 360 and run through the middle of him. It just doesn't work. And that's kind of the Darnell Wright thing. Now, like people bring up Will Anderson. Will Anderson tried to convert speed to power against Darnell Wright and found out the hard way that just doesn't work. And I bring up B.J. Ojulari because I'm a big fan of Ojulari. And Darnell Wright still held his own against him, but he did struggle a bit more with those guys that are a little more bendy, a little smaller of a target to try to put your hands on. But again, he's one of those guys with a grip strength, the latch activity. When Darnell Wright latches onto you, the rep is over. And once he sets anchor, he's not going anywhere. And that to me is his calling card, where Broderick is kind of a ball of clay. That would probably be the best way to put it. Is Broderick is not that refined in any particular area yet, but if you wanted me to call like a specific calling card for him, I would either say it's his athleticism or his just junkyard dog mentality, which is like I was kind of talking about, like, I'm going to bury you. Like, hey, you know what's going to happen. It's mano a mano this rep, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to be on top of you, and I'm going to run your face into the ground. And I'm going to pull you by the back of your collar and go get up, and we're going to do this again next rep. Like that's the calling card. And then I hope that gets people excited, because I'm like, just because I'm saying like I prefer Skoronski, I'm not down on these guys.
Right.
But that's what we're talking about. Is Darnell Wright? I can very clearly go like, this is his game. This is what he's strong at. And I don't mean to make like, because Madden's a shit game, but you want to bring up Madden, like when you draft players, you get kind of like the question mark of like, what is his athleticism, or what is like that's what Broderick Jones is a little bit, is like unknown. I don't know what his ceiling is because he's so far away from it. But you can see little bits and pieces where you're like, I like this guy. Yeah. I like the way that he bodies this corner out in the edge. And you've seen Braxton Jones do that. So I could see them liking this. And this just a very brief end. Paris Johnson can move the way Broderick does, but Paris Johnson does not finish and is not as much of an asshole as Broderick Jones is. And that's the difference to me. And that's why I like Broderick over Paris.
That's interesting. We do need to move on though, because we've talked O-line for an hour, and we have several needs on the Bears. Offensive line, I feel like, is where we should go in the first round, but again, we'll have to see how it all plays out, how their board falls. Who knows? Maybe we could go corner, wide receiver, but my second biggest need, in my opinion, is on the defensive line. We did bring in Andrew Billings to lock down the nose tackle. Shout out to KB. We brought in Walker from Tennessee. He might play edge. He might play some 3 technique. We're not sure yet. So we brought in some names, but nothing really big. And even those guys, like Billings is on a 1-year contract. I think Walker might be on a 1 or 2 year contract. So you're still having to build for the future. Do you think we should throw edge and defensive tackle in together? Because to me, there's only one defensive tackle even worth a pick in the first round, and his name is Jalen Carter. He does come with question marks off the field, but on the field, he does everything you need. He had some issues in the offseason. I don't really want to get into it because it's well documented. Anyone who knows anything about the draft knows what happened. I guess I'll just say it. He was racing. A friend of his died, and so did a trainer at Georgia. He went back to the scene later. I don't know if he told the cops the truth or twisted the truth. The guys that when they do interviews, and the Bears have brought him in several times, so when they interview these guys, I'm sure they know a lot more about the situation than we do as outsiders looking in. But he is a plug-and-play 3 tech. And other than him, I worry about Kalijah Cansey's arm length. He's kind of a one-trick pony to me. He gets there with speed, and that's really about it. But we're talking first round here because that's what's happening this week, first and second round. By the time we get back on here on Sunday, we'll know who the pick is, so we can talk about that then. But edge rusher, there's a lot of names out there. Will Anderson, I feel like will probably be gone. He wasn't gone in our mock draft. We grabbed him, but I think he's going to be gone. But there are several names on the edge. Jordan, I saw one of your mock drafts this week with Lucas Van Ness, and that seems to be a very popular name in the chat this morning. The Hart Foundation has stated many times that he is a big fan of Van Ness. So definitely wanted to put his name out there to that one. other edge rushers that
Tyree
could
Wilson.
be there. Right, Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech.
Keon White.
That's a little. But we'll get into some of these edge rushers. KB is if assuming Will Anderson is the only edge gone by the time we hit the board at 9. Is there a can't miss guy that you are in love with, but you're like, I would take this guy over an offensive tackle even?
It's funny because the guy I'm gonna say, I'm pretty sure our good friends in New Jordan can wax poetic about him. Van Ness is a very interesting prospect, man. I believe he can play the edge. I believe he can kick inside and play 3-tech and be a hell of a 3-tech. At 9, I'd be very hard pressed to pass him. You know what I'm saying? That's a hell of a player, bro. It's a hell of a player, especially if you kind of look at it the way that I was kind of speaking on things with the O-line. Maybe you can find a dude to kick inside to play guard in the second round, and you can get a Van Ness and like, hey, that guy, he's gonna mess with people's O-lines. I can't wax as poetic about the kid like my boy Jordan can. I'm just saying, I know the dude's a freak of nature. I know that when he played, that he didn't get all the playing time, which was a question I had, since he was coming in on certain downs and stuff like that. But the kid was fresh. You could see it. He was a terror. He's beat on people that we're talking about going in the first round. Right. So just going off the strength of saying that, I don't believe Will Anderson to be there. To be honest, I don't even think Tyree Wilson to be there. I think both of those dudes are going to end up coming off the board in the first 8 picks. So yeah, I ain't gonna lie, bro. If Lucas Van Ness is there and they decide to stick at 9 and just say fuck it and take him, hey, more power to him. I'm all for it. The dude's a hell of a player, and that's like the only person defensively I'm looking at like, yo, that's somebody I would love to get, because I don't believe that the Jalen Carters of the world, the Will Andersons of the world, or Tyree Wilsons of the world to be there. The one name I do not want to see is fucking Miles Murphy. I'll probably break some shit if he gets drafted at 9. I'm just saying. But Van Ness, yeah. Listen, I'm on board for him. To me, it's the first 4 picks damn near to me have to be trench players. I'm sorry. There have been times I've thought to myself, man, you know what, man, I would love to see certain people taken. But to be real, this team has to be built through the trenches. Like, you have the linebackers, you have the back end of a defense. You can pick up a fucking, a flyer on a veteran at corner right now. I don't care. The defensive line is not in the best of places right now. Right. The offensive line is on its way. The defensive line is not in the best of places. That has to be fixed. It absolutely has to be fixed, and you need to allocate the resources to it. Lucas Van Nine at 9, you're on your way to fixing it. So I'll go ahead and pass that to somebody else, man. Y'all do what y'all want with that move.
See that? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Van Ness as well. I do like the idea of kicking him into 3 technique, which is, from what I've heard from other podcasters, guys like Dane Brugler and stuff on The Athletic, it seems like that's probably where he won the most was inside, and that definitely feels a need for us. Picking him at 9, if it plays out like you said, KB, where Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson are both already gone, and maybe a Jalen Carter's already gone, that could be an interesting position. They said, he doesn't start at Iowa, which Iowa's weird because they had George Kittle and he dropped to the 5th round. They had, and that's a different position, but they have so many. I feel like they don't use all of their players to the best of their ability every single down, and I don't know what what that comes down to. They've had a coach there that's been there for years, so maybe it comes down to that, where he just values experience. I know my high school coach was like that. If you were a senior, even if you were a sophomore, that even if you were better than the senior is going to play just because he's a senior. Maybe it comes down to that, just those old school coaches. I don't know. But Chris, do you know anything about this Van Ness guy, or is this? I'm going to let Jordan finish this out because I feel like he's going to go on a bit of a tirade.
Yeah, let's go.
Then I know absolutely fuck all about that, guys. That's quite lucky, but that's good timing, man. Because I kept thinking, keep talking, AC, keep talking, brother. But that sort of defensive line I've been looking at is Keanu Benson from Wisconsin, Zach Pickens?
Zach Pickens,
South Carolina. That's Pickens. Can't even read my own fucking writing. Defensive tackle, is it Jacqueline Roy from LSU?
Yep.
That sounds like a girl's name. That doesn't really sound like a girl's name, that does. I won't say it to his face.
I was going to say, you tell him that.
I meant some D linemen, apart from Will Anderson, and is Nolan Smith from Georgia. So he might be worth having a look at. But yeah, that's sort of my views. I mean, I can't really. I think maybe because I look at it from an offensive side, I really want us to get an O lineman for that night pick rather than a D tackle. Because we have brought in some people in like Andrew Billings, our good friend of the show, and so I know for me it's offensive line because I just want to see Justin Field get that protection so we can actually see what the kid can do.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Most of this show, we just wanted to let barflies know who to watch for at 9. And some of the guys that you mentioned there, I feel like are second round type of guys. Keanu Benton has shown the ability to play both nose and 3 tech. So that's an interesting name. If he's there at 54 and we go offensive line in the first round, that could be an interesting draft haul early. Trying to think of some of the you did mention Nolan Smith. We'll touch on him later because he's a big name in the chat over here. But I'm going to let Jordan talk about some Van Ness, maybe a little Wilson if he wants to drop him in there. Some
sprinkle a little bit on each one of them. Which I mean, it feels like whether it's KB or CW, you guys are hitting my heartstrings with. You're fighting the good fight. I love Keanu Benton. Keanu Benton's a guy that I'll just touch on him briefly. It's possible he goes to the second. He's a guy I have a firm first on. To me, if he's in the second round at the end of day one, he's probably top 2 or 3 names on best players available board because that's how much I think highly of him. I think you seldom get a guy, and I know it can be seen as a tweener, but you seldom get a guy that can play both the 1 technique and 3. And he's probably more of a nose. But let me give you the other example. Mozzie Smith is the other big nose tackle. He's another guy I think could go to the Bills, for example. That's where I had him mocked recently. And Mozzie's a guy that, as athletic and freaky as he is, doesn't show the pass rushing repertoire.
He ain't never been that.
Benton does. And that to me is wait, so I can get a 1 tech that can pass rush and penetrate as well. That's valuable, and that's why I think so highly of him. With respect to Jacqueline Roy, I don't think Jacqueline Roy is probably going to go as early. He's fine, not a bad player, just not somebody I've fallen in love with. Zach Pickens is a guy I feel like I've been on the name of for months, and I still kind of ride that train a little bit. I think that his run defense needs a lot of work, but as a penetrator, as a pass rusher, as a former 5-star explosive guy, there's something there, and it's all about value at that point with Zach Pickens. If that's your third pick.
I knew Zach Pickens as a recruit. He was supposed to be the next Jadeveon Clowney when they recruited him down there to South Carolina, and he just never really lived up to the hype.
And I mean that's the story of Pickens, to be quite frank, is former 5-star flashes but hasn't been consistent now. And I don't want to say that he's had nothing around him, but for the most part, he's had a secondary around him: Cam Smith, Darius Rush. Mississippi State does put dudes there, but he hasn't had an all-star defensive line to help bolster him. And that's not I don't want to make concessions or excuses for the guy. If you're a stud, you just find a way to pull it through. And he did have flashes. I think that he also has some decent. You'll hear this is no shot at Brett Coleman. I know he recently came out and said he kind of felt bad about ragging on Pickens recently, but like Brett Coleman went in on him. I was talking about like he's dog shit at run defense, and I don't necessarily think it's that bad. I think he's had some good reps even against like Bama's interior offensive line, holding the point of attack on run. But not Jalen Carter, excuse me. Zach Pickens is not a guy that you take it all in the first round. I'd see him more in like end of 2, third, maybe that's decent value. Jacqueline Roy, to your point, C-Dub is a guy I'd probably think in the 4th, maybe 5th, just based on his tape. Not a huge, doesn't show a lot of flash. Solid player, more of a 1 tech, more of a limited skill set than a 3 to me. With respect to the first round guys, and I'm going to say Van Ness for the last because that's the one that I'm most excited about. But to me, if we're talking pick number 9, it's really a 2-man race. It's Skoronski or Van Ness, unless Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, or Will Anderson get there. Then you add a different element to the discussion. I guess we'll start with Tyree Wilson. Tyree Wilson is a freak. I still can't get this out of my head. Since I started, doing some scouting on him way back in like even September when he was kind of tearing it up, I was thinking, what if you add 10, 15 pounds to this guy and make him a 3-tech? Because that to me is like, I was a big fan of Logan Hall last year, and Logan Hall is a guy that, kind of that tweener as well. They've got this immense size, but athleticism. And what if you ask him to put a few more pounds on and he now becomes your 3-tech? And he's got the body of that Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, DeForest Buckner. And he would probably just wreck guards. Now, to be clear, I don't think he's going to be there, so I don't even think you're going to see that. And I do think that similar to how I'm going to make the argument for Van Ness, if we're going to say, Skoronski play offensive tackle to guard, I'd probably say give Tyree Wilson the chance at edge, and then he can play 3-tech on part-time on passing downs. But to me, he's got definitely one of the highest ceilings. I mean, you just don't see guys that are 6'6" with, condor wingspan and, blowing by offensive linemen, and they have exceptional power and speed and athleticism and bend and burst. So I think to me, Tyree Wilson, if Tyree Wilson was there at 9, I don't even think it's a hesitation. I just think Flus sent the card up because you want to talk about just kind of the whole bundle and package. Now he needs refinement too. He's not there yet, but this is kind of
Danny Shimon's number 1 edge rusher. He's got him over Will Anderson. So I've looked at some video of him at Texas Tech. As big as he was, his measurables, it seemed like to me he got pushed around more than I would have expected. And the foot injury, of course, it makes you question if he is there at 9, if that's a bigger deal than we know.
Yeah, and I mean, none of us are going to be able to find that. Only the NFL teams and doctors, and as we all know, doctors vary too. You have one doctor that says, "I'll put my name to it; it looks fine," and other doctors that go, "Well, I don't want to tell you he's good," and then have that come back on me because it doesn't work out. And so, but again, I don't think he makes it. I think, like, I couldn't see Seattle passing on him if he was there for Seattle. So, it's just unless
they go quarterback there.
Yeah, well, and this is the cost of doing business. Like you wanted DJ Moore and you wanted all those future first rounds. You're going to have to move back to 9 where some of these top defenders go. Will Anderson is a guy that I love. I know it's not maybe as sexy as Tyree Wilson or some of these other players, but sometimes I just don't think you look a gift horse in the mouth and pass it up. He's a guy that probably, I will say this, I think he is probably a little more maximized than other prospects. Like Bama just builds them. Like, hey, that's kind of the appeal of getting a Bama guy. He's already NFL strength trained. He's got, probably some of the best nutrition out there with the program that they have going, playing against SEC talent, practicing against all-stars, getting NFL coaching from Saban. So I do think he's probably a little more maximized. And I think maybe he'd be best as a 3-4 edge, but I think he can play down on an even front. To me, he's a guy that he's stout, holds the point of attack for the most part. And the only time I saw him getting his ass kicked in the run game is, and this is a problem too with Nick Saban and Nolan Smith, which we'll get to in a second, is in my system as Nick Saban, I don't care about stars. We don't play stars. Stars play, but you play where I put you. And so the only time I saw Will Anderson get his ass kicked was when he was being put at 4I, which, I mean, is already talking about the character of the guy to say, yeah, go ahead and put me up at the thankless position, or I'm going to get my ass kicked by a guard and tackle, and I'm going to get kicked down the line. but that's not going to happen in the NFL. He's going to play edge on a 6 shade on an offensive tackle and play their outside shoulder and hold up at the point of attack on run defense. And I think that he has a diverse set of moves, a diverse toolbox, likes to convert speed to power, but is relentless in his pursuit. I think that he's a guy that we had him fall in our mock at 9, and I totally agree that's probably not going to happen. But I also can see some of the concerns from teams going, well, what am I getting? Like, is there anything left to unlock? I think also it hurts too. The tail hurts of him, which is last year he had a outrageous year. It was something that you've never seen before. And I think people think that this year was bad. And I wouldn't say it was bad. I just don't think it was stellar like the year before. So I tend to think he'd probably be gone. But if he was there, that would be, as we did in our mock last week, that would be the pick I'd run up over a Van Ness. I'll try to be quick here on the last couple too, but Nolan Smith, to me, Nolan Smith just doesn't fit. He's a guy too, to his credit, I think he just kind of shut up and did the job of Kirby Smart, but Kirby Smart is an acolyte of Nick Saban, is a similar style, which is, hey, just I'll put you on the defense where I put you and you play it, and you don't say a word about it. And so he was another guy, kind of like that Travon Walker from last year, where he was just kind of all over the place, didn't get a true sense to just be able to pin his ears back and rush the passer. Played a lot of, that kind of that looping player, that contained player, the helicopter player on stunts and games. To me, he's a guy that he's a try hard in the run game, but I don't think I can put him at defensive end, even if I tell him to bulk up a little bit. I think
he's a off-ball linebacker in our defense.
Exactly. And, to me, what he represents is, and Drew Sanders from Arkansas is a little bit this way, but I would be more interested in seeing Nolan Smith play the Micah Parsons role, which is I'll put you at Sandbacker, and then maybe I move you up around the line, and maybe I blitz you off the edge there, but I'm more diverse. I line you up all over the place, and it's harder for offensive minds to scheme you up against you. So that's, to me, where I'm at with Nolan Smith. I keep wanting to call him Nolan Carter. I haven't touched on Jalen Carter. I'll be quick with that. Jalen Carter, to me, it's, and I'm not trying to steal any words from Dan Brugler here, but I think he's really summated it well. I think that with Jalen Carter, you're just getting a kid, and that's good and that's bad. Jalen Carter, and I know we got George in the chat here who's not a Jalen Carter fan, and I can understand some of that. Jalen Carter's inconsistent. He has plays where it's just like 3, and sometimes he'll string them together. It's like 3 or 4 plays where I'm like, holy shit, who's that guy? Looks like Aaron Donald just wrecking plays. But he's inconsistent, and he's got the off-field character issues, whether we like him or not. None of the technical parts. I mean, I would agree. It's that's where I hope that would be understood, George. But just because we're saying play him like Parsons doesn't mean he is Parsons. I'm just saying that same similar role. But so to me, with Jalen Carter, he's inconsistent. He is a kid. He is young. I mean, there's been reports that he was a guy that had to be pushed by Kirby Smart. Constantly like, hey, get on your horse, do your job. Don't fight. Come with energy, play hard. And some of that you have to ask, like, is that something that the Bears would even want? Like, are they okay taking a guy that they have to constantly cajole and push, or do they want self-starters where the motor? You've heard Foose talk about the motor always runs hot. And, we want guys that are self-starters and they buy into the program. And I don't know if they'd want this talented guy that you maybe have to grow up or mature to get him to his full potential. I'm not here to tell you don't take him at 9. I just think it's important to have the context of that's what you're getting. And I know, like with George in the chat, and I haven't seen him talk about it, but I know he would probably puke a little bit in his mouth to see a guy like Jalen Carter taken at 9. And I would say, I don't know if I'm like in love with it, but I could see why you do it. I just think that understand this is that whole point of the Skoronski. Like Skoronski, you sleep easy at night. If you take Jalen Carter, you're taking a gamble. Like you are rolling the dice, hoping you're not rolling the snake eyes. And if you pull up with the snake eyes, there's no blame to go to anybody but Ryan Poles. Like if you're going to take that dive on a guy like Jalen Carter, don't be surprised if it blows up in your face.
Barlissimo says Jalen Carter in the Florida game, you'd take him. Jalen Carter in every other game, not before round 3. As I mentioned earlier, I watched him live in Lexington against a team that was replacing replacing 3 offensive linemen and moving a guard to center for this year. His first time ever playing center, and he didn't flash. He may have gotten some pressures if I remember correctly, but it wasn't like I expected. Jalen, like I walked into that game, Kentucky had already not lived up to expectations for the year. I walked into that game as a season ticket holder. I was like, I'm going to go watch this game to see Jalen Carter for my Bears. I wasn't even there I wore my Kentucky gear, obviously, but I wasn't there as a Kentucky fan. I wanted to see Jalen Carter do something.
You want to see a game wrecker.
Right, exactly.
You want to see Quinnen Williams this year. You want to see Aaron Donald. You want to see Chris Jones in the playoffs. Like and I know George, this isn't like a shot. Like I like Jalen Carter. I'm much higher on him than you are, but I'm also can level and relate to you, George, in the sense I know you're not high on him. And that's the problem is if you want a game wrecker, a guy that can like just simply tear up a drive, that he does not show that enough. Like he has flashes, but if I'm taking you at 9, that's like, I mean, let me give you another example. And Ndamukong Suh went number 2 overall, and that was very rich, but he had a tendency, and yes, he had his off the field, or not off the field, but he would, stomp on players and had all types of, behavioral issues. But for the most part, he was always disruptive. And like I like to bring up Ndamukong Suh because I don't think people really remember. In college, he was like just a wrecking shop. I mean, there's a play where he's like throwing Colt McCoy, and Colt McCoy's flying like 4 yards over here, and he's just owning people, him and Jared Crick on that Nebraska offensive line. And to me, that you just never really saw that with Jalen Carter. And Jalen Carter's better year was last year. And it was well known that people thought he was the best defensive lineman when Jordan Davis was next to him and Trevon Walker was next to him. And maybe that helps. Maybe that's why he looks so fantastic, because he had all that help around him. But he was played in Georgia, and I'll give him a little bit of a grace here. I think that he, similarly to Nolan Smith and others, got used in. I mean, God, they had Jalen Carter playing nose, to playing some 4-eye, to playing some 5, to playing some 3. I don't necessarily think that happens in the NFL. I think he just gets to play 3, and he's told to be an athlete and backdoor plays. And I think that there's an opportunity there, but it's not risk-free. And maybe Ryan Poles will take a shot, but I will say this about Ryan Poles. To this point, I don't really think we've seen him be a risk taker, truly. There's not a huge, track record of seeing that. I see George here saying like he's not even Jordan Davis, and Jordan Davis was a freak athlete, but so that's the Jalen Carter talk. And as we get to kind of wrap up the D-line talk, I've been saving this because KV's back now. We get to talk about Van Ness. As I said at the beginning, to me, Skoronski's a safe pick. Van Ness is not safe. I don't want to position it like it's the same thing. But and George here is saying Van Ness is a project inside, better fit for 5 tech than 3 in the nickel. Yeah, I guess we can talk about that. To me, and to George's point, let me kind of placate him a bit. There's no team I want Van Ness with more, if it's not the Bears, than the Tennessee Titans. I think that because he's a thrasher, he's a mauler. Like he's the type that's just going to beat the hell out of your offensive tackle all game. And the tackle's going to be like, that was one of the hardest days of my life playing against that team. It was just physical every play. And I think Vrabel would love that. And they don't Harold Landry's a bendy guy on the other side. I know we're talking Titans, so I'll get back to theirs, but that is where I see George, talking about like, hey, I think he's a little bit more of an edge player, George. I totally see the value of having him as a 3 tech, and this is where I'm getting to, is if you wanted him at 3 tech, you're not losing anything. He's going to own a lot of guards. But similar to Skoronski, where I'm saying let him play outside, and if he fails, then we'll move him inside. I would do the same with Van Ness. Van Ness to me is not safe, but I know what I'm getting with Van Ness, which is like, again, we're looking at, let me put it this way. To me, Lucas Van Ness is a puppy dog. And that's kind of a valuable thing. Like, that was like, to be fair, that was Justin Fields in a lot of ways. Justin Fields was kind of a puppy dog coming into the league. Like he's got these huge paws and you see what he's going to grow into, but he's still got to refine parts of his game. To me, that's Lucas Van Ness in a lot of ways. He's got these huge, big paws, but he's still a puppy. He's got one single calling card at the moment, but guess what? The calling card works even against the best talent. In Paris Johnson, Skoronski, he'll just, sit there and power rush and drive his hands into an offensive lineman's chest, and he's so powerful and strong that he'll just pull you backwards. And sure, if we want to talk about what a player can't do or what's negative is, he doesn't have much beyond that. I'll be the first to say it. And so it sounds like taking a guy like that at 9 is rich, and maybe it is. But he can play inside. He can play outside. He's a local Illinois kid. Look, you can say that's nothing, but you've now heard the staff and the organization talk about they like that. He's got the connection to his girlfriend's Cole Kmet's sister, which I don't know about the dynamics there. Maybe that would be a bad thing having, that kind of that family connection. God forbid they break up or something like that.
That is all sight.
Yeah. So, I don't know about but to the point of he can play inside, he can play outside. He's got a calling card that works, even if it's limited. And because he's a puppy, he has room to grow. Like that's the thing is, it's not like he's limited in athleticism. He's not the bendiest guy, but he's got athleticism. He's got a decent 3-cone. And all of a sudden, if we can, and this isn't, I don't want to say it's a given. Not every guy can do this. But if you can get him to develop an actual pass rush plan to get more moves than just a power rush, what does it look like when he puts it all together? And that is why I think Van Ness at 9 is perfectly fine, because, God, even if it all goes bad, even if it's just like one trick pony and he doesn't really do much else, then he's a dominant 3-tech with more power than most 3-techs. He's got 1-tech power in his hands. And he's athletic enough to sit there and play the 3 and beat up on guards with more power and athleticism than most guards have. And that's the low end. And the high end is he's an edge that's a mauler and a brawler and thrashes you and bashes you for a whole game. And he's athletic and he's setting the edge, and you don't know what's coming because one play he's going to run through you with the hands in the chest, the old traditional calling card of the bull rush, and the other one he's swimming
how to spin off of it.
It's just that to me is why I can't get out of my head of, man, you draft that guy. Yeah, it's a little bit of a project. It's not super safe. But I don't think there's no work concerns, no work ethic concerns. There's no. It's just about like, how do I unlock the rest? Yeah. And he's a puppy. And I like I said, if you don't like that, then no, you're not going to like Van Ness at 9. But I'm willing to sign up. The draft is already a crapshoot. So, similarly, like this is a different topic, but like with quarterbacks, the reason why like people are down on it's funny, case AC, we had a talk about Will Levis, and now the Will Levis stock is right back up. And I kid, but there was a concern about Will Levis, and now he's rising back up boards. But the reason why you take a Richardson or a Will Levis is because maybe they're puppies, maybe they're unrefined, maybe they don't have it all together. But guess what? When it comes down to it, they can sling the ball 75 yards and the other guys can't. Like if it's all a crapshoot and it's all just burning lottery tickets and we're scratching off the numbers and seeing if we're winning, then give me the one that has the opportunity to hit for $6 million, not the one that can hit for $2 million. And that to me is what Van Ness is. Van Ness is a guy that the floor is already, you're still getting some return, but the upside is unlimited. We don't even know yet. It's not even scraped apart. That's the Broderick Jones argument. Like I already see what he does well, but there's no calling card. But, to KB's point, I know KB plays some Madden. You're trying to unlock those question marks of like, what is it behind here? And with Van Ness, it's sky high. I was a big Ryan Kerrigan fan. To me, he reminds me of Kerrigan, but I call him like unlimited Ryan Kerrigan. Because Ryan Kerrigan, don't disrespect my man Kerrigan, because Kerrigan's
was a dog.
Yes, like consistent year in, year out, productive in a Washington defense that is forgettable in a lot of ways. To me, Kerrigan had a super solid career. And I'm telling you, that's Van Ness kind of now, but he's physically much, much more unlimited. And I've already talked so much about Van Ness, but to me, I can't wax poetically enough about him because we're talking Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson going off the board. To me, if you're sticking at 9, you're not getting a trade. It's Van Ness or it's Skoronski. And by the way, if you traded back, I'd still probably say if those guys were on the board, it's Skoronski or it's Van Ness.
That's interesting. I was gonna go ahead, KB.
I was gonna say, bro, this is how I quantify it, bro. There's a player that's up there in the north that I hated that he fell to 2 because I felt like he should have went first overall, and I'm pretty sure the Jaguars wish they would have had a redo on that pick. Aiden Hutchinson has a lot of dog in him, right? Nobody ever sit here and tell you Aiden Hutchinson was Myles Garrett coming out or You know, he was the most exciting prospect. None of that shit. But you know what he had? He had dog in him. This is what I see from Lucas Van Ness. This is why I said I wouldn't mind taking Lucas Van Ness at 9. I don't care that the kid doesn't have the total package right now. He has what Aiden Hutchinson has. I'm going to be relentless. And being relentless is an issue. You see it because if you constantly getting somebody with jabs and body shots, and yeah, you're gonna get a lot of boxing references right now because I watched the boxing match. It's like, fuck y'all. But you constantly hitting somebody with the jab, and you come in alone, you hitting them with the body shots, it's gonna wear that person down eventually. And then you hit them with that one body shot that makes them crumble and fall to a knee. If I got Lucas Van Ness and I'm putting him on the edge and I'm saying, hey man, you know what? Just hunt the quarterback all game. Beat the shit out of whoever the right tackle is or the left tackle, whatever the case may be. Just beat him up all game. Make him not want no parts of you. So you see him bull rushing, and then maybe he learns a spin move in that. Maybe he learns a fucking swim move in that. He's putting together what he needs to put together, and the kid's relentless. So guess what? It's going to be good eventually. It's going to happen. The dam is going to break. And when it breaks, the kid is going to be fantastic. He's going to be a hell of a player. I talked to a homeboy of mine, and he said he scares me because he reminds me of Shea McClellan. I said the reason why he does not remind me of Shea is because Shea was not relentless in the pursuit of what he wanted to do. Shea was soft looking and he played soft. Yeah. You don't see none of that with Lucas at all. None of it. I'll take a kid right now who has one trick but is relentless over somebody I think can, you know, he's a little mediocre with some of the skills that he has, but he doesn't have a dog in him. So that's how I feel about Lucas, man.
And for what it's worth, played on an Iowa defense that to if you want to knock him for this, that's fine. But played on an Iowa defense that had studs all around with Jack Campbell and Riley Moss and a few other guys. But I will say he was pretty much the sole player on that Iowa defensive line. And yes, he didn't start because Ferentz has the old school seniority system, but logged plenty of snaps at Iowa. And I see, you know, George saying one trick that mostly didn't work. I guess, like I said, and I see R&R here. I see George saying earlier he doesn't want maybes and questions. He wants answers at number 9. I get it. And I don't know, George, how you feel about Skoronski, but that's why I pitched that as kind of the starting is you know what you're getting with Skoronski. Like there's an answer there and you sleep easy. Van Ness is not that, and I understand it. But to me, you're still – I think that there's value.
There are maybes all over the draft, bro. There are no sure things unless you're picking maybe in the top 3.
And George is saying like one trick that mostly didn't work. And sure, like, I mean, let me give you an example. And I put a nice thread up about Skoronski a few days ago because Duke Manyweather, renowned offensive line coach, O-line masterminds, and I believe it's Frisco, Texas. He's got Skoronski as a client. And like somebody was poking at him on Twitter and said like, oh, what about Van Ness putting Skoronski on his ass? And for what it's worth, that tape was from 2 years ago. And Skoronski completely neutralized Van Ness last year. Like it was this is kind of, you want to talk about like the down game. Van Ness was kind of a non-factor against Skoronski. And that's a guy that's got long arms, is a beast, is overpowering. And Skoronski found a way to put it together. And so it sounds like I'm placating you, George, by saying your one trick mostly didn't work. And like I said, like, sure, I understand he needs growth in that area. But what I can say is against renowned talent, whether it's Skoronski one year, or it's Johnson, Paris Johnson this year. I mean, I respect DeJuan Jones like nobody else's business. He's got a rep against DeJuan Jones where, I mean, DeJuan Jones, like I said, you're not going to run through him, even if you're Lucas Van Ness. But he didn't get mauled by DeJuan like everybody else does. And then he still has the relentless pursuit that KB's talking about to scrape over the other side and wrap up Stroud before he can get out in space and run. And to me, that is what I'm talking about with that guy, that one trick that mostly doesn't work. But yeah, but typically like once a game, it does. And once a game, and sure, if you're playing Tom Brady and he gets the ball out in 2 seconds, that doesn't matter. But Tom Brady's not playing anymore. And most guys are holding on to the ball. And that 1 or 2 times a game that the trick does work, where the offensive lineman is let me give you the worst case. Like maybe the offensive, or I guess best case, depending on how you want to look at it. The offensive lineman gets put on his ass and the quarterback gets it out and it's not a sack. But if I'm the offensive lineman, I've played a little bit of offensive line, not an NFL player by any stretch, but I definitely go back to the next rep going like, oh boy, that dude took me for a ride. Yeah. So it's got residual effects beyond just, it only worked one time, and it mostly doesn't work the other. So I could go on and on about Van Ness, but like George, I said, I value that we see the game differently. I hear you saying you'd like puke in your mouth if it was Van Ness or Skoronski, and that's fine. Everybody can see it differently. But to me, I like Van Ness, and I will end with this briefly. For all it's worth, I don't think that they take Van Ness. It just doesn't seem like the guy that they're after. I call that a hand, call that maybe a little bit of source work, but I just genuinely don't get the sense that that's the guy that they want. And if it's not, that's fine. I just think that somebody's going to get a good quality player in Van Ness.
Yeah, I was going to touch on it at the end, but you kind of touched on everything. Hometown kid. My biggest question is that he has one move. At least that's what I heard from Dane Brugler on the Athletic Football Show when they were breaking down their defensive line. They did talk about Will Anderson comparing to Khalil Mack, which to Bears fans, that could be good or that could be bad. If your name is, Dan Aguirre's not a big fan of Mack, but
I hate Mack, bro.
But there's plenty of options. So we went through O-line, we went through D-line. Being that this is a draft preview, I guess.
It's definitely a name I want to talk about. It's definitely somebody because I got to get this shit off my chest, bro.
I feel like we should talk about some other things. I listened to Locked On NFL Draft, and last week they did a mock draft with all their hosts from around the country, and Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears chose JSN at number 9. He didn't trade back. He didn't trade up. He sat right there, and he drafted JSN. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the offense or the wide receiver out of Ohio State. I feel like we should talk about him, and then I'll go around the room and we can. I'm sure KB, he already said he has someone he wants to talk about. Jordan, I'll let you pick someone, and Chris, if you'd like to pick someone from your paper there that you'd like to speak on, we can talk about that as well. JSN, to me, and I'm going to start it off with him. He's an excellent route runner. He doesn't have the insane top end speed. He's not 6'3", so he's not a big guy, but he gets open. He's got a history with Justin. I don't know if I like taking him at 9, to be completely honest, but I'm not sure where he would fall if we didn't. If they thought he was the best player on the board and they went ahead and grabbed him, I'm not sure where he would fall. I do worry about he had a hamstring injury last year and missed like
the whole
year. Couldn't even come back for the playoffs. So that does worry me as far as if injuries happen, are they lingering with him? But his route running is impeccable. I can't lie. He's my favorite receiver in the draft. Quentin Johnston got a lot of love pre-draft, and then people started watching the tape and saw him body catching quite a bit, which is questionable. I'm trying to think of the other receivers that are. Zay Flowers is getting some love. I know Jordan. I know you love Josh Downs. His size worries me. I think he's my height, so that's not great for an NFL receiver. But JSN. If you guys want to put your input on JSN and what your thoughts are on him, I'd appreciate it.
I'll start with. Go ahead, Chris.
So, can I? All right, nice to do. The only sort of way that somebody will think that they do that is like they're sort of thinking, what happens to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they initially got the quarterback, and then they got the wide receiver, which he played, with him when he played for LSU. So I'm maybe thinking that's maybe where that angle is coming from, regarding that receiver from Ohio.
You were cutting out a little bit there. I didn't really.
I know what he was trying. He was saying that basically the link that he sees with JSN with the Bears is that similar to the Bengals, and the Dolphins in some way, Chris. Like you're linking your college quarterback with your college receiver, and maybe there's a benefit to having that camaraderie and that chemistry in the building in a year that you want to see Justin Fields show clear improvement.
So
does that sum it up, Chris?
Right.
Okay.
That's bang on, mate. I'm glad somebody understood me, AC.
No wanker of the week here.
He could be the wanker of the week at this moment in time.
But
I'm only joking.
I know. KB, what's your thoughts?
I was gonna say my thing with JSN, man. He's a player I think you look at and you love to have, man. You see his projections. His projections really start at pretty much us and go from anywhere from that to like 25. You know what I'm saying? Right. The kid can go anywhere. He's not it's my man's name right now. I don't know why the hell I'm blanking on it.
St. Brown.
No, I wouldn't even go that far. What I was saying, he's not Jamar Chase. Okay, that's what he's not the Jamar Chase of this draft.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He's not that explosive. Oh my God, this is the guy that's gonna just put numbers up type of receiver. He to me is kind of like how you look at a tight end, right? Runs really good routes, has really good hands. He has good enough speed. You know what I'm saying? I believe if he caught a slant and it was an open seam, he might be able to take it to the house.
Yeah.
That being said, JSN he's a good player. I don't think he's the player to put you over the top. And with us, with the way I look at it now, right now the wide receiver room is stacked.
Yeah.
With DJ Moore, Mooney, and Claypool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe Velas factors into that somehow this year. You brought back ESB and Pettis. And then you know what I'm saying? You can also get a receiver later on in the draft. So I love JSN as a player. With them getting DJ Moore, it kind of took me off that, you know what I'm saying, that trailer or that train of saying, hey, get that player that's really good with Fields. That's an extreme luxury pick at this point for me. Good player, but right now you don't really need him.
Yeah, I agree with that. The DJ Moore being in that trade really pushed our depth chart down, and I think helps a lot with you don't have to grab a wide receiver early. There's a lot of names that are going through the chat now at receiver. I think it's Ford Wheaton or Wheaton Ford. West Virginia is who Triple R is talking about. Barlissimo is talking about a guy named Matt Landers from Arkansas, whom I don't know a whole lot about. Jonathan Mingo was brought up. He's a guy that I like a lot. I think you can maybe get him in the third round, or maybe one of those later second round picks. I like his size a lot. He looked really good against Kentucky. I'm not gonna lie. But I mean, again, we've touched on it before. I'm a biased guy. That's the games that I watch. So, but yeah, I do like Mingo. He's got size and speed and pretty good route running ability. Lane Kiffin's offense down there at Ole Miss, they just do work. His ceiling, from what I'll let you touch on JSN after I finish, but Jonathan Mingo's ceiling, according to draft experts, is AJ Brown, which, I mean, how can you argue with that? But then again, who knows what his floor could be,
The Mingo one saddens me a bit because, I mean, I'm not look, everybody's got their time to take flowers. I promise I'm not trying to just get my flowers here, but I feel like I was repping Mingo months ago, especially like I remember being out with friend of the pod, Swift Sports Network, during one of his like Senior Bowl live streams, and I'm over here talking about Mingo, and I was like, "Ooh, this is a nice steal if the Bears can find a way to get him in the third." Please, people, keep sleeping on the guy. And unfortunately, now it's we were sent into the second, and maybe you're right. I mean, people are now mocking him at the end of the first, just because some of that is you don't find 220-pound receivers that move that way, and like some of it can be seen as a negative. Like, yeah, man, for those that aren't familiar, like AJ Brown this year exploded because he was used in a different way. But when he first got to Tennessee, he was used a lot on, kind of, what do you want to call it, like moving routes. So can we get him in motion on a slant where when the ball's hitting him, he's already in space, he's moving, he's already got the speed built up? Can we get him a screen where he's got plenty of blockers in front of him so he can build up some speed before he has to deal with contact? And he was used in a much more limited role, but it was worked effectively. And then this year when he got to Philadelphia, they just started going. He put on his Batman cape, as he likes to call himself Batman. And he was like, "Look, just throw it up to me, Jalen, and watch me moss these dudes." because I'm 220 and I'm more muscular and beastie than all these other DBs. And I think that package is why, and some of this is, I don't mean it to sound like lazy scouting, but, somebody's talking about Bryce Ford Wheaton, and, I can't help but go, oh, you mean like Kevin White? Because it's like that same guy, speed and tall and skinny. And yes, it sounds like I'm helmet scouting because they're both West Virginia. And I'm not even trying to helmet scout because Mingo does look like A.J. Brown. And that's not saying he is, but when you look at these universities, it's not lazy. It's them going,
it worked with this guy. Let's try and get someone with those same traits.
They had Aaron Donald. They had a smaller defensive tackle that was disruptive. And they went back to the well and found a way to recruit a guy that could do the same. And that's the same thing with Mingo and Brown.
And DK even for that. Yeah. Man.
Mingo's a guy that I love. Let me put it this way. And George was saying, like, take Landers in the 6th. Yeah, I mean, I'm with it. Like, you want to take somebody late. I love Cedric Tillman. Love Tillman. Yeah. I don't care who it is. I just don't want you taking him in the first 3 to 4 rounds. Only because do you want to take a tight end? Take a tight end in the 2nd. I'm all with it. It's just, to me, I don't want to cannibalize the position. we'll get to JSN, but any receiver, plug any name you want in. Where do I put him? And if I do put him, then I'm screwing over my 32nd overall pick, or I'm screwing over the guy that presumably deserves a contract for his first 3 years of playing in Chicago with Darnell Mooney. Because I'm damn sure not screwing over my first round, my DJ Moore acquisition, the guy I'm going to build my offense around. So it doesn't matter if it's Mingo, if it's Tillman, if it's Hyatt, if it's JSN, if it's Flowers, if it's Downs. They just don't fit. If you put them in, you're screwing over one of your already vested assets. And the team has a lot of other needs. Ryan Poles has spent a ton of money and investment on that room. I don't see where a wide receiver fits. The reason I bring up tight end is tight ends are cheaper. Tanyan is fine, but he's not, not here beyond a year deal. And you've got other opportunities to put players there at tight end, and you can still weaponize it in a way that you're not cannibalizing your wide receiver room. And then specific to JSN, I won't really entertain it much more than just saying, I hope he proves me wrong. I think he's going to be an awesome, productive player. The Amon-Ra St. Brown comp isn't bad. The Keenan Allen comp isn't bad. I can shoot out a couple of other names, but he will be productive. He will probably have 800-900 yards as a rookie and catch a lot of balls and have a decent amount of touchdowns. But to Chris's point of, pairing them with the college receiver, he's not Jamar Chase. He's not Jalen Waddle. He's not there's no extraordinary traits with him. His best trait is route running and nuance in the route running, which is important. It's super important. Getting open, I get it. But maybe he can play outside of the slot. There was no chance for him to show that at the time that he was OSU. And to Chris's point about pairing a college receiver with your quarterback, I think that those guys are already gone. That was Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave much more than it ever was. Jackson and Smith-Njigba. And this is Heart Foundation is going is he Olave even? It's interesting. You've heard Olave and Garrett Wilson say
that he was better,
the best receiver out of him, and maybe he is. Like I said, I'm not here to knock the guy. His route running is incredible. He's going to get open, but to me, I can get that guy in later rounds. Wes Welker was pretty good at getting open and playing in the slot and doing that. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th-round pick.
Cooper Kupp may be the best receiver in the league, and he's a 3rd-rounder, right?
Emmanuel Sanders. You can get that guy at later rounds, later options, and that's not even taking into the fact that you're going to kill your wide receiver room for what it is. So I love JSN. I'm hoping and praying the Packers don't take him. I had the Packers selecting him in my mock because I know they don't take wide receivers in the 1st, and they have a very specific type, but he has the weight that fits their type, and they have a new quarterback that they do need to surround with talent, and he is a slot-only player, and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are not going to play in the slot. So there's just a big vacancy that is has 3 letters assigned to it for JSN in Green Bay. And I hope that doesn't happen, but
I think they'll go O-line in the 1st round.
Maybe. It's just one of those things that Cornelius Squalls put up a good one, Charlie Jones of Purdue. That is the same type of player. This is what I'm talking about. Is I can get those guys later. So I won't really entertain it more than that than just saying it doesn't make a lot of sense for all the different reasons I've listed. And, I wish JSN the best. I think he'll be a productive player, but he's not the next superstar.
St. Omni said other teams find wide receivers, the Bears don't.
He definitely has a point. What was the one wide receiver that we had found before Darnell Mooney? Alshon Jeffrey.
We usually don't find them, KB. We have to trade or acquire them. Musa Muhammad, Brandon Marshall, DJ Moore. Yeah.
You got to let other people.
I did want to bring up, Jordan, you mentioned Mooney there and Claypool and Velas. Claypool and Velas are Poles guys, but Mooney is not. As much as I love Mooney, I have his jersey. They talked about this when the Bears had the number 1 overall pick. Do they move on because he's not a Poles guy? Do they grab a quarterback? I'm
what's funny is maybe AC, but I'm not even the biggest Ryan Poles supporter. I'm not that I dislike the guy, but I've had plenty of qualms with the way he's built the team. But I will give him credit on one thing. I genuinely think for the most part he speaks the truth to his own credit and to his own detriment. For the most part, anything you've ever heard him say, he's usually followed up with it. And until he proves otherwise, I have every reason to believe that what he says his word is gold. Yeah. And I find it interesting that he is, in my opinion, gushed more about Darnell Mooney and Colt Kmet than he ever even has Justin Fields. And that's not I'm not trying to stir controversy about Justin Fields on the way out or anything. You saw that with the fact that he traded the number 1 pick. I'm just saying that on a level of who have you heard the GM gush about? Most. To me, the 2 names that come up immediately are Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. He's talked nice about Justin, said Justin's got good work ethic, so is Eberflus, but I almost think in some ways, too, that doesn't need to be said. That's your quarterback. You know what you're getting. I'm that guy, but, the first – correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody in the chat or any of you 3 feel differently, but I remember the first positive thing he ever said when he got in the building was, Darnell Mooney came to my office, and we had a super long conversation, and he's a hard worker, and I think some of that pays off too. For what it's worth, I know he didn't have a wonderful year. He was basically alone in that wide receiver room. There was nobody else but him, and he was still putting it up. Man, you got to give that man his roses. And I'm not, for what it's worth, I'm not even telling him the biggest Darnell Mooney fan. I've always said he's a wide receiver 2, not a 1. But he's not a big dude, and I watched him in the Vikings game moss somebody. That should not happen. And yes, he's had his issues. I know the Washington game, he dropped the pass at the end, but to me, I just tend to answer your question, AC. I tend to think that there's proof that he's worked in Nagy's system. He's worked a little bit in Getsy's system. He's a hard worker. He's a good success story. Homegrown in Chicago, seems to be a hard worker. Jugs machine in the house. All of that stuff. That if you were to ask me, who do I think probably stands the best chance of re-signing in that wide receiver room? I know it seems like Claypool's his guy, but Claypool is still going to prove everything. Right. Mooney's been there and has shown it for years now, and I tend to think, if anything, I think that he may get a little bit of a discount on Mooney coming off the foot injury and the fact that he's no longer spotlighting, or he's spotlighting more than being the star player on that wide receiver room. Right. They're going to build that offense around DJ Moore.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just wanted to bring that up while we were on the subject.
Oh, yeah.
KB, you've been patiently waiting about a draft prospect that you are about to erupt like a volcano about. Please.
This is it's not even about me just erupting about it, because I preface this by saying this. Full disclosure, I don't want them to draft the dude, but if we're going BPA and by being the best player at his position and it helping, it makes sense. And it kills me when people say it doesn't make sense because the Bears had a top flight rushing offense. No, we didn't. I'm going to tell people this now. The Bears offense rushing wise looked good because of Justin Fields. Let's stop the bullshit. We had 1,000-yard rushers at running back. Yeah, Mooney was hurt. Not Mooney, Herbert was hurt. You had my man's why am I blanking on his name right now? Montgomery was honestly being phased out at one point because Herbert was taking over the load. So this brings me to this. And like I said, I'm not saying we should draft him at all. But when people tell me the Bears has such a good running offense, it's because of Justin fucking Fields. It's not because the running backs we had. if Bijan Robinson ever had a chance at being with the fucking Bears and we were a complete team, Bijan Robinson would be an absolute fucking guy for me. I would stop everybody and say, I'm taking him. I'm a running back by fucking trade. I hate this whole conversation that running backs throwaway positions. Fuck y'all. Because at the end of the day, if Saquon Barkley made it out of the fucking New York Giants, I guarantee you the Bears would have thrown money at him to get him. I guarantee you I put my fucking stake of my name on that. I bet you money he would be in this building. Because the first thing I bet Poles looked at and said is, I cannot let Fields get hurt running the fucking ball. The man rushed over 1,000 yards. You take that away, our offense was shit. Shit. Yeah. So all these people that say, oh, well, the Bears had this great rushing attack. The rushing attack was great because of Justin Fields. Let's stop the cap. And it wasn't on fucking design runs mostly. It was on this man scrambling for his life. I take off. I'm faster than everybody. Like my man said on the fucking game, Globo Jim, I'm a better athlete than you. That's Justin Fields. So if you were to tell me I can draft Bijan Robinson, I would love to have Bijan in his offense. I really would. But that's a luxury pick. It's a luxury pick. But at the end of the day, that man would save Justin Fields from getting hurt when running the damn ball because you wouldn't expect this man to always get the ball. The man can catch the pass. He can run the ball. He's Booby Miles. There's an I in team because you put the I before team and that's Bijan Robinson. God damn it. That's how I feel about the shit, bro. I get so fucking angry when people sit there and tell me that this is such a great goddamn running team. We're not that damn great to run the ball. It was Justin Fields. It was Justin Fields. That's it. That's all. Like that's it. Bro, I get annoyed by it because, like I said, I play running back, bro. I hate when I hear it's such a throwaway position, but year after year after year after year, we get told what? We don't have anybody at the running back position that can hit a home run. Why? Just because we're constantly drafting people that are, he can break a couple tackles and he can get us a couple yards. I love David Montgomery. I will sit here and tell you this all blue in the face. The man was not a home run hitter. Yeah. As much as we love David Montgomery, nobody will ever sit there and say, oh, well, David Montgomery took that run from the 30-yard line and was gone. That's not him. That's not. Then I see Shorty saying that, Herbert ran the shit out of the ball. What was the knock on Herbert? Herbert is what? He's not a complete running back. Herbert sucked. Herbert is not the goddamn guy to keep in the backfield to block on pass plays. He wasn't there for that yet. This is all I'm saying. I'm not sitting here saying we need to draft Bijan Robinson. I'm telling y'all flat out, bro, it's a luxury pick. I said flat out, I would love to see the first 4 picks be trenches, both sides. Yeah. But the thing I am not going to sit here and say is that the Bears had this great rushing attack because the rushing attack came from Justin fucking Fields. Look at the yardage. Over 1,100 yards from a quarterback. If you're telling me that you're okay with him doing that again next year, you're going to be looking at the fact that at some point we might be picking this kid up off the fucking ground because he's been destroyed. And you can see the toll it took on him. It's 17 games now, people. What he told us flat out during the Detroit game when he ran out of steam. I was tired. Yeah. And then the next play, you see the effect. The man is carrying a fucking team. I'm looking at the tea leaves. I said it before. I believe Saquon Barkley would have been on this damn team if he did not get franchise tag. I absolutely 1,000% believe that. I believe they would have thrown that man the money because they would have looked at it as this is before the DJ Moore trade came out. This is before that kid was on the team. They probably looked at that and said, you know what? The person right now I believe that can really help Justin Fields would be Saquon because guess what? Saquon can get open, fucking running back bubble out the backfield. You can dump it off to him and he can make 10 people miss. But guess what Saquon can do? He can hit his head on the fucking goalpost from a 10 and nobody will catch him. That's just not. Well, I've seen him get caught before. Look. I'm not gonna cap. He was caught a few times. But there's a threat of Saquon scoring when Saquon gets the ball. I've seen it. The man gets the ball and the air is sucked out the stadium. You're holding your breath because you're waiting for something amazing to happen. And that's how I feel with Bijan Robinson. He gets the ball, you wait for something amazing to happen. The kid's fucking amazing. But like I said, I was just stirred up because the report came out that the people shouldn't be sleeping on Bijan at 9 and blah blah. Look, bullshit to me. I'm calling bullshit because we need so much help during the trenches. But the one player who I absolutely believe in the skill position sense that can help Fields today would be fucking Bijan Robinson, because it takes the onus on that man having to run the fucking ball. It would pretty much stack the box, and with the 3 wide receivers that we have right now, I would love to see somebody stack the box and sit there and say, "Oh, we're gonna guard DJ Moore." I guarantee you, shit wouldn't happen. Yeah. So, look, I know. Hey, look, I came off a little hot. I was just pissed off because you see so many. Oh, Bijan Robinson. Oh, well, the offense is already good. Blah blah blah. Shut that shit up, please. Shut that shit up.
You know I love you, man, but
Go ahead, bro.
You know I love you, man, but he was my guy. Well, I was going to talk about. You've absolutely said everything I was going to say about the guy, man. So you really fucked my segment up. So the only
like I said, bro, I just had to get it out because I get fired up about that, bro.
I don't know how passionate you are, KB. I thought, I can't stop this man in his full flow of passion for this running back. But the only sort of 2 other guys I was thinking about were 2 cornerbacks. Devin Witherspoon from Illinois, so local, and a cornerback from Oregon, Christian Gonzalez. So they're the only other 2 sort of positions I look at this. I keep hearing that, cornerback is going to be quite high there, thinking from sort of various shows. So I don't know if you can add any more to them cornerbacks at all, Jordan.
I'm sorry, Chris?
So talk about the corners there.
Oh, yeah. I'll wax a little bit. At this point, I laugh because it's like you're just serving me plates of food because I'm like, this is what I do, guys. I love talking draft. And at this point, my board's already kind of solidified for the most part. Christian Gonzalez it's weird because Kyler Gordon to me was a tier 2 corner last year, not in a bad way. Just like he was one of the top names at that second tier. And to me, Christian Gonzalez is everything that Kyler Gordon is, but better, more refined. They're both just freaky athletes. Like I like to joke that Christian Gonzalez lubes up and oils up his hips before every game because he's over there dancing salsa with people as he's guarding receivers. Like it's just his ability to flip the hips and match receivers is wild. Still has some work to do, but as far as an athlete, he's exceptional. I think he can play the catch point a little better, but comes from a family full of athletic all-stars. From dad played basketball, I think, overseas, and his sisters are track stars. So that's him. And he's not my number 1 corner, but I think that he would be the corner that Ryan Poles would, fall over himself for. And I don't think it would happen, but it wouldn't surprise me. Like he talks about taking value positions, and the only way I think it happens if he doesn't like Jalen Johnson. If he's like, hey, because you've heard Jalen Johnson already say they've talked contracts, and maybe he gets the sense from Jalen Johnson that this is another Roquan where I'm just not going to be able to get him to a price I'm willing to pay. And so we've got 1 more year with Jalen, and I got to start gearing up for the next one, and it's better to get a corner to get some experience now. Maybe it happens. So that's the Christian Gonzalez. I almost said Christian Watson, not a receiver. That's the Christian Gonzalez corner breakdown. The other ones are Devin Witherspoon. Devin Witherspoon is probably my favorite watch from the corners. It's just very seldom that you see a corner that's like I'll try to change the word. I was going to say he's a thug, and that comes across negative. But like it's not negative. It's just he's a bully. He's a silver bully.
He likes to hit people.
I love it. How do you not love that? Yeah. His long speed. Now he ran better than I thought he would, so I'm happy about that. His long speed isn't like what I think is his calling card, but I don't think he's that guy, but he is sudden and he's physical. Like I don't remember his measurables off the top of my head, but he's sub 6 foot. He's a lighter guy, but he's got the mentality that he's Joey Porter Jr., which we're going to get to in a second, that he's 6'2", 215. He's coming downhill. He's going to light you up. He is instinctive. So to me, I totally get the Devin Witherspoon hype. I like him. He's still not my top corner, which we're going to get to because that's Joey Porter. But I actually think that the Lions are likely going to take Witherspoon. They just shipped off Okuda. They could go Gonzalez, but I think that when you talk about, Motor City Dan Campbell, I think that he and Aaron Glenn are just salivating at the bit. Like, Witherspoon is our type of guy. And they got some intel with Kirby Joseph there, who's going to tell them all about Witherspoon. So to me, Witherspoon is that guy. I love the player. And then to the last one to kind of wrap up, and if you have any more, Chris, that you want me to talk about, I will. But Joey Porter Jr. is the other one that comes up a lot. And to me, he's my cornerback one, has been for months. He's not everybody's cup of tea. He's not the shiftiest. He's a bigger corner. But I've comped him to Nnamdi Asomugha, Jalen Ramsey type, where he's just going to body you. And he's got condor arms. He's got super long arms, wingspan, that he's fluid enough, has good enough speed that when he's beat, he's not beat, because he finds a way to stay in the hip pocket of most receivers. And even if the ball's placed well enough, he's got these long arms to sit there and just bat it out. So to me, he's got the length, the measurables that you're looking for, knows what an NFL life is because his father was Joey Porter Sr. Doesn't quite play with the same mentality, but in the sense of physicality is probably the right way to put it. But as far as mentality, I mean, I was having a nice talk with Nick over from CHGO as he was posting up Charlie Jones from Purdue, who we've talked about, who was kind of working Joey Porter a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, well, Joey Porter is not going to play well against the shiftiest wide receivers. Like, let me be clear. JSN would eat Joey Porter's lunch up every rep for the most part. But that's not what I'm asking Joey Porter to do. I like man corners, press corners, because I call it cat coverage. Like, when everything else fails, you just cover that cat, and you cover that cat, you cover that cat. So we play man coverage, and I'm putting Joey Porter against the best of the best every rep, and I feel confident that he's going to lock it down. And, I mean, look no further than Marvin Harrison this year. Marvin Harrison Jr., top receiver from OSU, probably going to be a top 5 pick. Sure, let me save the time for the people that are just going to box score scout, because, yes, the Ohio State-Penn State game, Marvin Harrison had a fantastic game. If you go watch the film, he started off against Joey Porter, and Joey Porter put the clamps on that ass and locked him up, to the point that Marvin Harrison had to go to the other side and try to get some work in because it wasn't happening against Joey Porter Jr. So to me, that's enough. I mean, that's just a game, and this goes on before last year when I thought Joey Porter was going to come out, and I was hoping the Bears would take him. But to me, Joey Porter's my top corner, and if you just want like a synapse of why is that the case, go watch him play against Marvin Harrison Jr. for the few reps that he got. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is legit, bona fide, and even Marvin Harrison had to go.
That's what I want next year.
Yeah, and Marvin Harrison Jr. had to go. Guys, can you? Whether it was him or Brian Hartline or the coaches, I need to get away from Joey Porter because I just can't do anything against this guy, and that says all I need to hear about it. So as an outside corner, that's the guy I want.
Well, I like Christian Gonzalez a lot. He's really fast. I don't know his numbers, but I don't think he had a ton of ball skills, like takeaways and stuff like that. No, I like Devin Witherspoon for his tenacity, just like you said, Jordan, where you don't find corners that want to tackle.
Yeah. Like
Deion Sanders was my favorite player as a kid. He didn't want to tackle fucking nobody, though. And Devin Witherspoon is the exact opposite of that. He wants to get in your face and hit you and let you know he's there, let you know he's there all day. And corners definitely know how to talk. If anyone ever played football, corners were the biggest shit talkers that I knew on the team. I mean, the ball gets overthrown by 10 yards and they're doing this and throwing up the eggs.
And oh my God. So annoying. I did that. No, you didn't.
He's got Josh Norman's mentality, but without all the rah-rah with it.
Oh, okay.
And that's what you love to see. Like, yeah, it's just, man, Witherspoon, whoever gets him is getting a baller. Now, again, my biggest concern with Witherspoon is the size. It's just a different game in the NFL, and like I love that he throws his shoulder into everybody, but I'm like, we gotta learn to fall on the sword a little bit here, because you try to put that shoulder into Komet or one of these linemen coming out on the corner.
Well, we saw it with Kyle Fuller a lot. He would try to throw a shoulder and the guy would break the tackle, and next thing you know, you got Eddie Jackson way down the field trying to make the tackle, and it's just
T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd, go ahead and try that on one of them, and let's see how that shoulder works. So, like, he's got some room to learn, just like Gonzalez does, and just like Porter does. But to me, I think when we're talking about, and this is a very long discussion, so I won't get into it, but when you're talking about evaluation, you're trying to thread a very tight needle about what am I getting now and what am I getting as a projection. And that's kind of we talked a lot about that already. Like Will Anderson, is he maxed out? Lucas Van Ness, is he a puppy dog? Is he still got room to grow, but does he have a reliable calling card? Skoronski, does he have versatility? Like we've talked a lot about this. And to me, with respect to your answer, Chris, about the corners, is I'm trying to thread that needle of what am I getting today with what am I getting in the future. And to me, it's easiest to project Joey Porter and what his role is and how solid he's going to be as an outside corner. And then watching him further refine his skill. I don't necessarily ever think he's going to move to nickel and cover the shiftiest guys.
Right.
But really the only concern I have with Porter, who's my top corner, is run support. I think that he could – it's total opposite of Witherspoon. Witherspoon's like hungry to get into a scrap. Porter's not necessarily that way. Not that he's afraid of contact, but he's not looking for it, which is you're talking about AC is very typical of corners. That's why they're corners. Like I'm out here in the boundary. I don't want that trouble. I don't want that problem.
If I wanted that, I'd be safety, right?
Yeah, and so that's what Porter is. So maybe he gets a little better than that. But as far as just because again, and this is why like I think if he makes it to the Patriots, like Patriots to me, it's Van Ness or it's Porter, and that's about it. Because to me, like I know Bill Belichick in the sense of what they run, and this to me is the basic bare bones of defense. When it all goes to shit, what do? We just play man coverage. You just lock your guy up. And there's no better guy in the class at locking a guy up than Joey Porter. It's just how I feel.
Yeah, you mentioned, how good he is in man-to-man coverage. He does have 0 interceptions this year, though, so that's a concern.
They don't throw at him.
A lot of people that talk about re-signing Jalen Johnson are not the biggest reason why we might get a discount or something is his ball. He just doesn't have a lot of picks and stuff. So
neither did Darrell Reeves.
Well, that's even a nuanced conversation that we don't have to totally get into. But I get the desire for ball production, and I'm just trying to speak facts here. And like I said, we don't have to get into it deeply, but ball production usually happens with a lot of big plays. Also, like you play the risk, you play the reward.
Like Diggs.
Yeah, Javon Diggs. A lot of interceptions and found a way to still give up a lot of yards. And I mean, you have occasional like Revis and Sherman, some of those older guys, Pat Surtain, the first, Samari Roll, some of those guys were able to get some ball production in ways that they didn't give out a lot. But for the most part, in today's league was so passing heavy. If you want the guy that's finding a way to snag 6-7 interceptions a year, he's also giving up big plays. And it's a preference thing. I've never had a problem with Jalen Johnson for the most part because he just gets the job done. It's not a very pretty game, but I never truly, and the A.J. Brown game is the one that's just like burned in my brain, and I love it. Jalen took a loss that game. Let me be very clear. But he went up, sacked up and said, I'm going to play Batman today, and we're going to fight all single game. And I'm not going to get embarrassed. Like, yeah, A.J. Brown had plenty of good plays and won that battle that day. But for the most part, even against the elite receivers, I just know that Jalen Johnson's gonna make it happen. He's not going to get embarrassed. He's not going to get burnt. If he's going to get anything caught on him, it's going to be well earned by the receiver. He's going to get up, rinse it off, forget the last play, and just keep fighting. Like that to me is a preference thing. That's my type of corner. Doesn't mean it has to be somebody that's, where are the interceptions, to your point, AC? And that's not a negative thing either. That's just perception.
I'm playing devil's advocate on these prospects. What fans are going to say when whomever we do draft, they're going to hear the negatives first. Like typically, unless it's like Trevor Lawrence when he was drafted, of course.
Well, everybody, and not that we had to totally sum it up this way, but I mean, it's kind of something we've been dancing around all show that we haven't really talked too much about. But KB said it, and I mean, I just poke a little bit or cajole like people like George and others in the chat. But there is no perfect prospect. There really is. Skoronski's about as perfect as it gets. Well, his arms aren't quite big, are quite long enough. Jalen Carter's pretty amazing. Yeah, but he's got the off the field issues. Yeah, Levis is pretty cool. Yeah, but he's eating bananas, with the peel on and putting mayo in his coffee. Like Bryce Young's freaking amazing. Yeah, but he's short. Joey Porter's awesome. Yeah, but he can't play slot. JJ
Robinson's good, but he's running back.
Like you can go through every single player and be like, this just isn't it. So to me, I'm with it, AC. Like, totally fair to talk about the negatives. I don't mind ever addressing them. Let's not run from them. But I come from a world of like, just tell me what the guy can do. Don't tell me what he can't do, because I'm focused on how can I make this guy successful. Because if we're just focused on what he can't do, I got news for everybody. Every single player has a I can't do this, because if they didn't, they'd be a perfect prospect, and everybody would be trying to trade up for the first pick. So it's kind of how it works.
That's true. I mean, I think we've covered almost everything other than, I mean, we even threw a running back in there, KB. My question about, and I didn't get to touch on this before we jump to corner with running back, is I just feel like it's so high to pick a guy, even if Bijan Robinson is
most definitely
Saquon Barkley. Like, Saquon is, for as good as he is, he's had injury concerns and he hasn't really led the Giants to anything, which is why I think they franchise tagged him. And what's he done, KB?
I feel like this. I feel like when
back last year,
I was gonna say, if you have an offense right now of Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, I think most people, probably about 99% of people, would say we need to stop Saquon because we're not worried about Daniel Jones unless he runs the ball. So you geared up to take down Saquon Barkley. That's kind of the thing with the Giants. You have to stop Saquon because we would rather deal with Daniel Jones than that man going off.
Look, and
that's my thing.
I take no pride in this, but KB, I know, is going to back me on this. Again, I take no pride because I love Brisker. Brisker got played numerous times. And the only reason he got played by Daniel Jones, and the reason why Daniel Jones was able to run so much, is exactly what you're saying, KB, is that we're going to fake the ball to Saquon. Everybody's going to flow to Saquon because they understand this is a priority. We have to stop him before we stop Daniel. And then Daniel gets to just wheel out on the back end, and everybody's flowing this way. And I mean, AC, I love you playing devil's advocate because I'm not against it. I understand, and I have plenty to say about running backs. But to me, I do have to agree with KB. Like, what has he done? No, he's been hurt, and he had a great rookie year, and then he was hurt, and he dealt with plenty of shit with Joe Judge and everything else that was going on in that dysfunctional couple years of the Giants. But as far as last year, they squeezed every ounce of blood out of that stone. Of that team.
God, yes.
And a lot of it was through Saquon. It was built through Saquon because they didn't have any receivers. Their tight end was a rookie fourth rounder. Like, hey, who's your best receiving weapon? Oh, the fourth round tight end. So it was literally the Saquon show. And then Daniel, can you make something happen with your legs on the back end? That was the offense. So I mean, to me, I'll just say this very brief because I know I love. By the way, I freaking love that we got two former running backs at some level on the show because I was never that guy. I'm too big for that, but. Love running backs. I played fullback. That was the closest I ever got to it. And to me, running backs are it's a nuanced conversation. And I'll just say this, KB, because I think we could probably find common ground on it. I like Bijan, by the way. Bijan, to me, my comp to him is Curtis Martin. It has been for a while. I don't think unless you're an old head, you don't remember Curtis Martin. But Curtis Martin
was a dog with the Jets.
Amazing. That's who I see Bijan as. And so I don't think it's going to happen. As you said, it's a luxury pick. There's other needs. But whoever gets Bijan is going to be a very happy team. To me, Herbert, Montgomery, you're right, KB. All of them have some asterisk about they just don't have this part, as we've been talking about.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
But the difference here, and this is where I'm going to fight back on people devaluing running backs, is that running backs in Montgomery, Herbert, Chris Carson. I mean, you name any of those mid-round guys. They are 8, maybe 9/10 sometimes of the special ones. They're most of them. But that is truly what separates them. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, LaDainian Tomlinson from yesteryear. I mean, these guys that are true top picks. I know Leonard Fournette's a unique one. But Leonard Fournette, by the way, let's not forget about playoff.
He was a monster at LSU.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget about playoff Lenny when he was driving the Bucs there. So when you have a special running back, there is nothing quite like it. You can replicate, you can imitate with an 8/10 or a 9/10 of this guy. But Christian McCaffrey is a perfect example. And yes, you want to talk about like running backs where health has been an issue. Christian McCaffrey churned that San Francisco offense. He was the straw that stirred the drink when he got there. It was all right. It was kind of working. But then as soon as you had to account for Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, and McCaffrey, explosion.
You don't want no parts of it.
That's what a running back adds. And the truth is that you don't get that when you're adding a middle round running back. But when you have one of those ones that you're investing a first rounder in early second, those are the elite of the elite. I just think of recently, it's Nick Chubb, it's Jonathan Taylor, it's Breece Hall, it's McCaffrey, it's Josh Jacobs, it's Saquon Barkley. You don't always have to get them. And this is the point to KB is because it's been so devalued. It's not that Nick Chubb or Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall shouldn't have been first round picks. It's that there's been this stigma that you just
running backs.
Guys. But I mean, that's the point is if you're willing to spend a top 40-ish pick on a running back, when you identify the special ones, they're worth their weight in gold because of what they do to transform an offense. And we don't give them enough credit for that. And that's its own issue to me.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm trying to follow the conversation on the screen and the conversation in the chat. Everyone's talking about what they're putting in their coffee now since we talked about Levis.
Oh yeah, I seen Heart Foundation said his abuela. She puts she put slice of cheese in her coffee.
You guys don't even want to get me started on Levis because like AC knows how I feel about Levis, and it's weird because he's my fourth quarterback, so it sounds like I'm super negative on it. But and I'm not going to get into a whole war with people in the comments. But all I would ask is,
I'm biased, but he's number 2 on.
Yeah, well, I'm just like, I just wish people would. All I'm asking is when you evaluate Will Levis, and I know it's probably hard, but when you evaluate Will Levis, can you please take out his food consumption as part of the evaluation? Yeah. It's weird. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's now nobody really remembers except apparently AC and myself that it was a joke about putting mayo in coffee.
Oh yeah, AC told me. AC told me, so I was like, okay, cool.
But like maybe he does eat bananas all the time with the peel on, and that's weird. There's no doubt about it. And the fact that he does put mayo in his coffee is weird. Like even if it's a joke, that's weird, dude. Don't do that. But let's be clear, that has nothing to do with the quarterbacking side of it.
Right.
And so we
all this stuff comes out around draft time, all these little, like when Mitch was drafted, they found his tweet from 2015 or
about kissing titties,
2010 about loving to kiss titties. And I'm like, well, fuck me too. I
love kissing titties. I would imagine that every, self-respecting man in the world would love to kiss titties.
It's 2023. They can be women doing it too.
I like to know that Mitch was a human being.
Thank you.
That's even better when you go to the women.
Oh my God, that's funny. I see that this whole conversation just going extremely left for a second. Yeah. Yes,
I'll try to reel it back in here. Oh man! So I mean, the only thing we didn't really touch on was linebackers. I think we're pretty good at that position.
I mean, again, if you guys have anything else you want to talk about, that's fine. But I think I appreciate it. Everybody's been so patient with me talking, but goddamn, I feel like I've given you all the deepest dive on offensive line, defensive line, the top quarters.
It's draft day, baby. I mean, draft time, baby. Jordan, this what we got you for, baby. That's what you do.
We're talking about value of running backs. Like we've done it all. We're talking about the diet of quarterbacks. We've exhausted this.
Yeah. So we'll Mr. Shorty, he just does not like Levis. I like to have him on. He's talking about his pro day. Listen, a lot of people want to talk about the pro day. I mean, look at him at the combine when he was throwing to. He threw a perfect ball to Jalen Hyatt, who everyone loves. What Jalen Hyatt did.
All about Jalen Hyatt, bro.
Watched it hit the ground.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, and for anybody that's actually interested in a short but solid talk about Levis, AC and we did this last week at the start of the show. Did a little talk about Levis, and I mean, like I said, I won't go super into it, but.
Triple R said, "Word is Santos is getting cut. Who y'all like at kicker?"
Where did that happen? When does this happen?
He's just trying to get us to talk about every position. I think.
Oh, Mooney. Shit. Oh, Rabbi already put it. Mooney. Yeah. God damn it. That's the only name. I don't care about nobody else. Michigan bias.
Yeah, but no. I think it's been. All I'm gonna say with Levis is. Try to remove the diet from the evaluation and understand it. You evaluate how you want to evaluate, audience, but to me, I just try to evaluate with nuance. Like CJ Stroud's awesome. CJ Stroud's also never played with a bad team.
Yeah.
And Levis looked pretty awesome when he played with quality people around him.
Right.
And then he got, the equivalent of Matt Nagy at offensive coordinator and had the equivalent of what and I'm not even kidding. I think it was a worse offensive line than what Justin Fields was dealing with last year. Two different levels, but that's kind of what it was like is Levis was playing behind the Justin Fields offensive line.
I mean, Kentucky, not to get off on a tangent here, but Kentucky's they moved from our center from last year. They moved him back out to guard. They moved one of our guards back into center. They went and got a transfer left tackle. They just got a commitment yesterday from the right tackle from USC, Jordan, your neck of the woods. Yep. So they're rebuilding the offensive line through the transfer because it wasn't good. I mean, we went into the year last year knowing that it was possibly not good, and we didn't work out the kinks. I'll tell you that.
And by the way, God forbid that my quarterback decides to play on a bum leg, a bum foot, where he's getting it shot up before the games, and a separated shoulder. Yeah, I mean that that guy's not worth his weight in gold yet. God forbid, you draft him. Make sure he's a top, 78 projection. Like it's just one of those things, man. Like I do whatever you want, but I'm not gonna shit on a guy that I think. In many ways, AC. Let's put it this way, because you love your UK quarterbacks or UK. KU quarterbacks. I'm going to continue to go University.
I'm not a Kansas fan.
Yeah. You like your Kentucky quarterbacks. What I would say is this: I hope and pray he falls to a good team. I hope and pray he falls.
I don't think he's going past the Colts. I think it was all a smoke screen and all the.
I'll tell you what.
Stuff started.
I'll tell you what. It's a good spot. It's a good spot. Like
good O-line in front of him, a couple of weapons.
You mean you got Pittman, you got Pierce, you got Taylor. Like, all I want is, and I want this for every quarterback. It's not just Will Levis, but I mean, it just feels like, man, everybody's dragged that dude through the ground, and so it's like, all right, now he's starting to see a little rise. We're hearing about like Houston may take him at 2, which I think that's bullshit, but I hope he lands somewhere where it's competent. And to me,
he tested, and we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it on air or not. The test numbers came out. CJ Stroud was in the 18th percentile. Levis was in the 90th percentile. I think Bryce Young was in the 90th percentile. A lot of that has to do with reaction. It's a quick test. They want to see how well you react to stuff, and he did really well. And he has 2 years. I know this year didn't work out with Rich Scangarello from San Francisco, but he has 2 years. He has 2 years hearing NFL style offenses. He doesn't have to learn terminology when he gets to a pro team, which is a big thing that you'll see. Bryce Young probably does too, because they have NFL guys there at Alabama. But CJ Stroud is going to have to learn terminology. Anthony Richardson's going to have to learn terminology.
Big time.
Hendon Hooker, I know he's getting a lot of love, and I think he'll probably end up in the first round, probably like a Lamar Jackson type deal, or someone trades up into the back, or someone down there will grab him. But that Tennessee offense is spread wide open. I mean, your wide receivers are literally on this damn sideline, and they open it up like that, and he only has to read half the field on most plays.
Arizona.
So they got to learn.
Yeah, CJ Stroud. And I won't go too much deeper in this, but like CJ Stroud's the one that worries me. I love CJ Stroud, local California Inland Empire kid, but God, dog, you're gonna have to go from having the mountain of DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson and blocking for you. You're gonna have to lose, Olave, Garrett Wilson, JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr. Good luck, man. Like you're going from first class to coach.
Yeah.
And
I think this quarterback class will be better than a lot of people think, but we'll just have to see how. Like you said, every prospect has questions. Bryce Young looks perfect, but if he was taking hits like Justin Fields last year, he's going to be on IR.
It turned to a fine pink mist.
Yeah. But we've been on here 2.5 hours now. I think we should close this thing out before we go on too far. My wife will probably be texting me, wondering what's going on.
Jordan got to get some sleep.
So we'll go around the room and give our shout outs, and then I'll finish this off. I'll start with KB, and we'll go this way. And I'll finish this out.
Go like this. Okay, I got you. Oh man, good times getting on here. Good times. I definitely had to get that one part out. You know what I'm saying? felt like a ghost sitting on my chest. You know what I'm saying? Gotta exercise the demons. Okay, anyway, but man, shout out to everybody in the chat, man. There's a lot of folks in here, man. It's all over the place this morning, talking about some of everything. We talking about condiments in your coffee, to why the hell we're wrong for thinking these players should go here, or it's all over the place today. I enjoy it, man. I love everybody that's in the chat, man. You know what I'm saying? Getting on here with you guys, it's therapeutic. Love being on here with y'all, man. They still going Ethiopian coffee. I ain't never had it, bro. It sounds good as fuck though. You know what I'm saying? Y'all get on here. You know what I'm saying? My boy AC always holding it down, man. Is just like the king on top of the mountain right now, bro. You're doing your damn thing, bro. We love the hell out of you, brother. My boy C-Dub getting on here, just like, you know what I'm saying, just throwing these. Hey, man, I got this dude on my list. You know what I'm saying? This guy on my list. Hey, I like this dude too. You know what I'm saying? I know I get on here and I tell you I don't know shit about these draft picks, but I got some names. It's my boy C-Dub, man, putting in the work. I love the hell out of y'all. And then, like I said, bro, it's always welcome to have my boy Jordan on here, man, because the knowledge that this guy can fucking spit is crazy to me. It's wild, because I don't know shit about, you know what I'm saying, Timmy that goes to West Bumblefuck, but that man right there in the corner does. He's seen that one game with that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? My boy Jordan puts in the work.
West Bumblefuck.
Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? I just love being on here.
Crinkleberry.
Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? Well, my dude, I was gonna say just a little setback on that aside. My dude was like, "Hey, man, there's a Billy's dude on there, bro. He can't remember his name." Shut up. Shut up. But you know what I'm saying? It's always a pleasure with y'all boys, man. This is one of my highlights of the week, man. I just love getting on here on Sundays to talk ball. So love you boys. Love everybody else that's doing the damn thing. Aldo, man, y'all, you're also just there's another mountain that you on that's above our mountain. Whatever. We love you, Aldo. And all the shows and everybody, man. Shorty, I see him in the chat, man. You know what I'm saying? Nomad, all them boys, Dan Aguirre. Everybody just doing the damn thing, man. Love all y'all boys, man. Keep doing the damn thing.
All right, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, mine is just sort of it's such a fucking joyous way of spending a Sunday afternoon for me. Is talk to the boys about, one of my favourite passions in life is the Bears. And it's always nice to have you on, Jordan, because, I don't follow college football as a rule, so, you put the information behind the name and the statistics. I always appreciate you getting up at the crack of dawn in LA and joining our show. KB, you're just a fucking awesome dude as usual. Apart from you did nick my running back part, you bastard. But apart from that, love it.
Hey,
I had that out in big letters. Like that was an important part of my research today. But that was you just fucking get on it and just run with it. Anyway, I still love you, mate, and have a safe week, mate, as well. And there, see you, man. Always joy to speak to the Southern gentleman. And you're getting better running the show, mate. It's getting more and more slick, and love chatting to you for like a couple hours. And thanks to everybody for the chat. You are, and let's hope we have a fucking first good day at the draft, fellas. Because even I'm excited now. It's getting to that fucking tight time of the month, but it's less than a week away from the draft. So just thanks again for everybody, and I love you all. And I'll pass it on to you, Jordan.
Of course. Well, thank you, everybody. Chad, Cornelius, Ravi, Kevin, Shorty, Renewable, George. I'm sure I'm missing Heart Foundation. I'm missing a few, but we appreciate you all kind of hanging out. If I'm waking my ass up before 7 o'clock to get on the show, I'm glad you are as well, even if you're not in California. And it's always enjoyable talking Chicago Bears. I guess if I can give a message to the chat and everybody, it's just be excited. This is it's not a bad thing, but like we're getting towards the end of hope season per se. You're starting to open the presents and see what it looks like. And there's good in that. You get to finally focus on, we got this guy and I want to know everything about him. But for now, enjoy these last few days where it's mystery, it's excitement, it's intrigue, what's going to happen. And the Bears are in a good spot to make some moves and improve the team. And hopefully we're trusting in Ryan Poles to be able to do that and navigate it. I think that, as Shorty says, biggest draft of our lifetimes. It's a big one. And it's exciting times. This is really the Bears. They've hit rock bottom. They're now turning the corner and seeing how they can shoot up. So,
yeah.
It's exciting times, and then to you gentlemen, I always appreciate you allowing me to just talk and spew information. I know it's kind of like, does this guy ever shut up with the motor mouth? But no, I appreciate you all. Chris from across the pond, you were always a joy. I'm glad to have you back and glad you're doing well, brother. KB, you long live the running back. You keep holding that forever. Long live running backs. You tell everybody that doesn't like running backs to go fuck themselves.
Always.
and then AC, you're no damn Kansas fan. You're a Kentucky fan.
That's right.
But no, it's always a blast, gentlemen, and I know that we're gonna have an exciting time in the future talking about, I guess only one more of these. No more of these left actually until we get to talk about who's drafted. So
that's right.
And then if you're here tuning in, I know the guys in the I'm talking with right here already know it, but for the chat, as we talk about Aldo, the Podfather, the guy that runs Barroom, he's got a big lineup this week for draft coverage. Barroom Network will be live each day of the draft. I believe it's John Buffone hosting on Thursday night, opening night of the draft, with Neil Stopchinski and Danny Shimon, as well as I believe Aldo will be there. I'm not sure. And then day 2, I believe it's Danny Shimon, myself, and Aldo kicking off day 2. And then day 3, I believe we're doing a little bit of a variety of people. I may hop on there for a little bit and have other people, but there's and don't get me wrong, there's tons of places, and I shout them out, but there's tons of places to watch good draft content. But if you're specific for the best top shelf Bears draft content, you're in the right place. So just tune in, buckle in, strap up. Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. First and foremost, shout out to you boys, KB, my guy, the fireman, coming in here after a big fight night last night. Appreciate it.
No more drinking.
I love you, bro. You
bro.
Holler at your cousin about.
I was gonna get on that. Because me and him talk. We had a couple other little personal sides. Because he was telling me where he was going to be staying at. And I was like, that's traveling distance, bro. I can come visit. He is definitely on board with coming back on. He said he just said, let him know. So, we could try to work around whatever schedule he has. But he said he was definitely down to come back on.
That's awesome. We'll have to get with Aldo, see if we can get him a Barroom shirt. I know we don't have a swag shop anymore, but
I don't know if we have 5XL, for that big buff.
I'll figure it out. We'll get it done. We got to get him a Barroom shirt. He can wear that in the locker room. Maybe get us a couple other guests.
Maybe you gotta tell Andrew we gotta get the pic of him in the Bears locker room wearing the Barroom shirt. He's got the sleeves cut off, so he's just flexing.
You feel me? Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll definitely get all that worked out. It's awesome that he's a Bear. I mean. Yeah. When we had him on, it was just a dream, we kind of pitched to him and recruited him, and the fact that he ended up signing is amazing.
I like to think we put his big ass on a sled, all due respect, and we carried his ass. You are not going anywhere. You will be a Chicago Bear, Andrew. This is happening. And only KB knows, but I'm sure there were other offers. I'm gonna force myself to believe that he just channels back to that Barroom interview going, those guys really liked me. I'm gonna go be a Chicago Bear.
Like I said, it was some other offers on the table. It definitely was, but
so that's great. We'll get all that worked out. My man C-Dub from across the pond, thank you for joining us this morning. Really missed you last week, brother. It was great to have you back. Like KB said, you went and did some homework for us. We appreciate it. You had some names, and I know you love your run back.
Look at the pamphlet, boy. What you
mean? My man put pen to paper talking about some prospects. We appreciate it. and of course, Jordan, man, like, go ahead, Chris.
I would say it's only because I forget people's names, like all players' names. After about 10 seconds of God, I'm got like a goldfish memory when it comes to people's names in general. That's how it's always been. So I have to write stuff down. I just won't fucking remember. So cheers, Jesse.
Yeah, that's great, and definitely Jordan, man. I don't know how we would do the show without you. I mean, your knowledge, your vast knowledge of draft prospects, like Chris said, I think at the start of the show, or maybe he said it before we got on. if we didn't have Jordan on here, it'd be a half-hour show. It'd have been real quick. I mean, we'd have had 5 or 6 guys to talk about, and then it'd been over. So we definitely appreciate it. I know you talked about yourself as a bit of a motor mouth, but we love it, man. I eat all that shit up, man, and I listen to all over. I listen to the Athletic Football Show to listen about prospects. I listen to Hogan Johns have done stuff, and I love having your perspective on prospects. And you're not cookie cutter like everybody else. Like you said, your O-line ranks, you got them a little bit different than some other people, and you bring guys to the table that, like KB said, from
Hinkle from West
you like, I saw him play once or twice, and he did this and that, and I'm like, damn.
I have to give Desjuan Johnson, Toledo. That's my Hinkle Kringle and Bumblefuck, but Desjuan Johnson, Toledo.
You still talking about? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, man, that's great. So I love coming on with you guys every week. I guess I'll have to shoot out a message and make sure our time slot's open for next week. But I plan on coming in and recapping the first 3 rounds and maybe talking about some guys that are available on day 3 that I know Jordan will have some information on. Mm-hmm. And so we'll try to do that next Sunday. Definitely, just like Jordan said, just like, comment, subscribe, and everything here at the Ballroom. We'll have a huge lineup for draft. After the draft, stay right here at the Ballroom. We got Crosstown Crosstalk. We're talking baseball,
science fiction,
where they talk about movies and stuff. What I was going to say about the Crosstown Crosstalk, I've been trying to get Aldo to let me on there because there's an awful lot of White Sox bias, and your boy's a Cubs fan, so I got to bring a little North Side spice to it. It's called Crosstown Crosstalk, and there's not really a crosstown yet. It is difficult with my schedule and the schedule that he operates on, but I know there's barflies in the chat that love the Cubbies just as much as I do.
You do it, AC.
So I think it'd be nice for me to get on there a couple times and talk about
I know that life a little bit. I'm in LA. You got your Lakers fans. Those are the White Sox fans. Like, look, you get it, you righteous assholes. But it's the Yankees and the Mets. We need one of those people to be a Clippers fan, to be like, look, I don't ride with everybody's, Me Too movement of, oh, everybody's a Lakers fan, everybody's a White Sox fan because they're successful. No, you ride with the Cubs, AC.
That's right. Well, I mean, speaking of the Cubs, the Dodgers from your neck of the woods are in town today. I don't know if anybody likes baseball or if you like pitching. I think today is Clayton Kershaw going up against Stroman. It should be Stroman is leading the NL in ERA, and Clayton Kershaw, well, he's Clayton Kershaw. You know what I'm saying? So it should be a hell of a matchup. I'll be watching that later on. But yeah, it was great to have everybody in here. Everybody in the chat, Mr. Shorty, Triple R, Homer Cuts coming in, Ravi, Cornelius Squalls coming in with a bunch of stuff, man. Just everybody. Y'all killed it today. Gave us all kinds of stuff to talk about, like from prospects to Darnell Wright's got an awful lot of love in there. So I think there'll be a lot of Bears fans happy if that. Who we end up with from coffee, everything. We talk about everything in this chat. So if you're listening on podcast, come into the chat sometime live, and we have a grand old time out here, as they like to say around here in Kentucky. But yeah, man, it was great to talk with you guys. I know we're going really long, longer than we usually do, but I've loved the conversation. I've loved being able to chat about all these prospects, and it's definitely got me excited. Like the week of Christmas, about to open these presents in a few days, and we'll just. I mean, after that, we'll just leave everybody with a bear down.
Bear down, everybody.
Bear down, man.
Bear down, man.